This young black teenager, determined to change his fate, was ready to take a bullet with his own body. "Kid, you're brave." That moment earned him the attention of a powerful crime boss, but the story actually began 10 minutes earlier. The boy's name is Franklin. Growing up surrounded by crime, he wanted a way out, so he went straight to the biggest drug lord in town and asked to become his partner. The drug lord saw him as nothing more than a kid who didn't know anything about the world, but Franklin insisted on working with him, so the boss pulled out a bulletproof vest and told him to prove himself, which led to the scene at the beginning. Franklin didn't hesitate. Maybe the drug lord saw a younger version of himself in Franklin and purposely shot off target to spare him. In return, Franklin received 1 kilo of product, but the boss warned him he had to sell all of it in one day or face the consequences. For any rookie, this was an impossible mission, but Franklin was willing to do anything to change his life. Back to the main story, Franklin went to his uncle's house for help, but when his uncle heard it was a whole kilo, he immediately refused. Even he couldn't sell that much in a single day and didn't want trouble. "Get that stuff out of my house." But Franklin's aunt had overheard everything. Later, as Franklin lay on his bed staring blankly at the drugs, someone knocked on the door. It was his aunt. She took Franklin to a secret location. After a security check, they were allowed to meet the boss, Crane. The aunt introduced Franklin, and all three entered a private room, but Crane suddenly turned hostile. "I don't know you, but I think I've been tricked. We came here to talk business." "Shut up, Louie. Let me try it. Let me see how it tastes." Her men said the product was good. Crane then asked Franklin where he got it. Facing a gun pointed at him, Franklin didn't flinch. He told her the product belonged to a powerful figure in the drug world and that he was only delivering it. If she bought all of it today, he'd bring another kilo tomorrow. But if she killed him, she'd be facing a crew of killers who would come looking for him. Crane thought for a moment, then lowered her gun, and just like that, Franklin made the first real money of his life. Seeing that gun in his face made Franklin realize that if he didn't grow stronger, he'd always be a target. The need to become powerful rooted itself deeply in his mind. Looking at the stack of cash in his hands, Franklin couldn't help but smile. He never knew making money could be this easy. A wild idea instantly crossed his mind. He went back to the drug lord who supplied him, but the boss was in trouble. One of his men had tested the bulletproof vest and was dying after a single shot. They needed to get him to a hospital, but the driver feared getting arrested. Franklin immediately made an offer. Give him 2 more kilos, and he'd safely deliver the injured man to the hospital. The drug lord saw that the kid knew how to seize opportunities, so he agreed. If Franklin succeeded, he'd get access to a high-quality supply. After that, the drug lord taught Franklin how to respond if the police questioned him, but Franklin barely paid attention. He already had plenty of experience dealing with this kind of situation. He stepped on the gas, sped to the hospital, dumped the injured guy at the entrance, and drove off without caring whether the man lived or died. Just like that, Franklin secured another load. The boss grew more impressed with Franklin. The bold kid reminded him of himself when he was younger. "Good job. Drive carefully. Don't get into an accident. If you do, I won't be seeing my money again." That night, Franklin went back to see Crane. Since they had already worked together once, the deal went smoothly, but Franklin had no idea he had just stepped into someone else's territory. A major buyer like Crane always had other suppliers. Now that Franklin had cut into their profits, there was no way those people would stay quiet. As Franklin was about to drive home, a small car suddenly pulled up behind him. Before he could run, someone punched him to the ground. They beat him, took all the cash he had earned, and when Franklin tried to fight back, the attacker pulled a gun on him, and before leaving, he even stole Franklin's beloved car. That moment made Franklin truly feel the helplessness of being weak. He silently vowed that one day, he would build his own empire here. He then went to Crane's bar for help, but she had no intention of getting involved. Instead, she taught him a lesson. Before you're strong enough, don't steal other people's clients. Crane had expected this outcome, and this lesson would become a principle Franklin followed for the rest of his life. Before he left, Crane told Franklin that the attackers were Lenny and Ray Ray. With a bit of asking around, he could find them easily. The next day, Franklin met up with his close friend Leon and asked if he knew anyone with real muscle. Leon said those people weren't hard to find, but they weren't cheap either. Still, Franklin needed his money back. They went to a neighborhood run by a local enforcer named Carvel. Seeing an easy job fall into his lap, Carvel immediately agreed. When he learned the targets were Lenny and Ray Ray, he took them straight to Lenny's house. "Do they both live here?" "No, only Lenny does." "How do you know the money is here?" "Trust me, Lenny's holding your cash. Ray Ray is just his errand boy." Clearly, jobs like this needed someone experienced. As they reached the door, Carvel immediately pulled out his gun, ready to handle things the simplest and most brutal way, but the moment he did, Franklin was shoved against the wall. "Lenny, open the door, I brought this kid for you." The moment Lenny opened the door, Carvel shoved it wide and burst in. The three of them pinned Lenny to the floor and tied him up. Carvel raised a baseball bat, ready to beat him, but Franklin stopped him and tried questioning Lenny his own way. Lenny, however, didn't take him seriously. At that moment, Lenny's guy, Ray, suddenly knocked on the door. They quickly covered Lenny's mouth to avoid trouble. Thinking his boss wasn't home, Ray waited a bit outside then left. Carvel had officially run out of patience and was ready to handle things his own way. Screams echoed through the room. Eventually, they found the stolen money, but the moment Carvel saw the cash, greed overtook him. He wanted to keep it all for himself, ignoring Franklin and Leon completely. "Carvel, wait, that's my money." Carvel gave a mocking smile, grabbed the money, and walked out. Franklin could only watch in silent anger, unable to fight back, forced to see his own money taken away. Back home, Franklin drank to ease the frustration. Being pushed around again and again was slowly hardening him, so he asked his uncle for a gun. His aunt immediately went to get one, but his uncle stopped her. His uncle looked him in the eyes and said, "Once you carry a gun, you must be ready to use it, but if you pull a gun and hesitate to shoot, there's only one outcome, you die." Franklin understood his uncle's warning, but he was determined to change his fate, no matter the cost, and so, he obtained the first gun of his life. From that day on, he began transforming into someone others would soon fear and respect. The next day, Franklin and Leon went to Carvel's turf. He needed to get back what belonged to him, but as soon as he stepped inside, he realized Carvel had used his stolen money to buy a new car. Furious, Franklin drew his gun and marched into the house. But before they could shoot, Carvel suddenly collapsed. He had spent the entire night drinking with Franklin's stolen money. Franklin then drove the new car to the drug lord, intending to use it to pay off his debt, but the boss was too smart to accept it. Still, he didn't punish Franklin. Instead, he told him to get back to work and earn the money to repay him. Before they left, he even handed Franklin a shovel, telling them to deal with Carvel, who was currently unconscious in the trunk. They needed to bury him deep in the desert so the coyotes wouldn't dig him up. Franklin only wanted to make money. He didn't expect to be dragged into the dirty work of the criminal underworld. They drove deep into the desert, far away from the city, but before long, noises came from the trunk. Carvel had woken up. It was their first time dealing with something like this, and both men were extremely tense. Franklin turned the music up loudly to calm their nerves. Suddenly, Carvel started kicking and tearing through the backseat. Panicking, Leon grabbed the gun and fired, but the shot missed, making things worse. Carvel managed to break out of the car, knocking them aside before running off. Franklin and Leon had no choice but to wait for him to show himself so they could catch him. But when they went down to look, Carvel's body was nowhere to be seen. Following the blood trail on the grass, they eventually found him hiding behind a post. Franklin approached with the gun in hand. At that moment, Carvel deeply regretted ever crossing him. He pleaded for his life, saying he had an elderly mother and young children at home. Franklin hesitated and agreed to spare him, but Leon didn't. After returning, Franklin sold Carvel's car and his own motorcycle to a dealer. He finally collected enough money to repay what had been stolen and went straight to Drexler. This earned him more trust from the drug lord. Drexler was ready to give Franklin more product, but Franklin said, "I don't need it. Why not? I'm done, thank you." Drexler wasn't surprised, just a bit disappointed. "All right then, honestly, you lasted longer than I expected. Not everyone is built for this line of work." Franklin walked confidently out of the mansion, but could he really walk away that easily? That day, Franklin's uncle hosted a party, and friends, neighbors, and relatives gathered at the house. Leon showed up with a potential business partner, hoping they could expand their operation, but Franklin had already quit the game. He told Leon he didn't want trouble anymore and just wanted a peaceful life. But something happened soon after that changed Franklin's mindset completely. His uncle accidentally set off fireworks on the roof, and moments later the police arrived. Someone had reported gunshots coming from the house. Everyone tried to explain it was just fireworks, but the white officer insisted someone had fired a gun and escalated the situation. Young and hot-headed, Franklin couldn't stand the officer's arrogance and ended up getting beaten. That moment made Franklin realize something important. When you're good, bad people bully you, and when you're bad, good people judge you. He resented the unfairness of the world and vowed to become the most ruthless person he could be. That night changed his life forever. After the fight, Franklin and his boys sat on the rooftop talking. After thinking it through, he said, "Tomorrow, both of you come get product with me. My brother, I love you, man." The next day, the three of them successfully picked up 4 kilos from the drug lord, but when they took it to Crane, she said she would only buy 2. Franklin was confused. It was all high-quality product. Crane told him that if he wanted to make real money, he needed to expand elsewhere. This neighborhood only had so many buyers. If Franklin monopolized everything here, people would get killed. Is that a warning? That's a prophecy. Franklin understood the truth. He wasn't strong enough yet. He vowed to build a reliable distribution network and carve out his own territory. So he went to his uncle to discuss how to expand, but his uncle told him a story. About 18 months ago, a group of black guys hijacked a tanker. It was full of cocaine, but the truck belonged to the Mexicans. A lot of people died because of that. That incident made his uncle stay far away from drugs afterward, but Franklin refused to stay small forever. His aunt understood and suggested he talk to Nish to learn more. Franklin and his uncle went to see Nish, and his uncle asked him to explain what was really going on in the city, hoping Franklin would back down. Nish explained that the entire city's drug trade was controlled by the Mexicans. They were ruthless and didn't care about consequences. To expand the business, one had to go through the Mexicans, and with the current circumstances, that was practically suicide, but even this didn't shake Franklin's determination. The next day, Franklin returned to Nish, asking for the Mexicans' location. Seeing how stubborn he was, Nish gave him 3 warnings. In life, everyone receives 3 gifts: what your mother teaches you, what the world teaches you, and the opportunities that come later. You can't choose the first 2, but the third one, your future, is yours to decide. Since Franklin still wouldn't back down, Nish finally gave him the address. Little did he know this seemingly ordinary kid would one day terrify the entire underworld. Franklin, the young black teenager determined to build his own distribution network, drove straight into Mexican territory, but the moment he arrived, their men had their eyes on him. Seeing their hostile expressions, Franklin panicked and lied that he was lost and had taken a wrong turn. He tried to drive off, but a second later, they dragged Franklin out of the car, pinned him against the hood, and searched him head to toe. They quickly found a small bag of cocaine in his pocket. Seeing how suspicious he looked, they assumed he was trouble and began beating him mercilessly. Just as they were about to drag Franklin inside, a man spoke up and stopped them. He was a business partner of the Mexicans, and seeing how young Franklin was, he stepped in. Because he had some authority there, Franklin narrowly avoided disaster. Before leaving, the man warned Franklin never to come back. He had no idea that the kid he saved today would one day make the entire criminal underworld tremble. After returning home, Franklin called 2 of his closest friends to go look for new customers together. The 3 drove 7 hours to Oakland to meet Kevin's cousin. The area was full of biker gang members pretending to be tough guys. Seeing them, Franklin felt excitement rise. To him, these people looked like walking stacks of cash. Kevin's cousin welcomed them warmly. The buyer hadn't arrived yet, so the deal had to wait. Franklin's friends hung around having fun, but he wasn't interested. He wandered off alone, and stumbled upon a huge opportunity. Franklin walked into an abandoned building. It turned out to be an old Black Panther's headquarters, where his father once worked. Memories flooded back. A woman called out to him, and though they had just met, they spoke as if they'd known each other for years. She showed Franklin a new kind of cocaine her group had developed. He had never seen anything like it. Immediately, he sensed a business opportunity. She then took him to meet the people distributing it. Franklin asked why they were selling it so cheaply. They said their job was only to sell, everything else was beyond their concern. Franklin immediately pulled out a stack of cash and bought their entire supply. He had only one request: take him to the supplier. Soon after, they brought Franklin to meet the creator of the new product. After talking for a while, Franklin told him he wanted to be rich too, and if the man taught him how to make it, Franklin would spread it across the world. For an artist and innovator, seeing their creation become globally known as a dream, it wasn't something many could achieve, but Franklin spoke to that desire perfectly. The creator agreed immediately. And thanks to this encounter, Franklin, once a clueless beginner, now had a solid foothold in the underworld. The next day, his 2 friends complained non-stop. They had waited all night for the deal, and Franklin had disappeared. He didn't answer them, just showed them what he had accomplished overnight. What is this? What the hell is this? Our future. The trip to Oakland brought Franklin enormous profit. He seized the opportunity and realized that from now on, wealth was no longer just a dream, it was within reach. This young black teenager had stumbled upon a chance to get rich. The trip to Oakland gave him access to a new kind of cocaine. His 2 close friends asked him when they would start selling it, but Franklin announced a plan that made them furious. They would give it away, not sell it. Since no one in their city knew about this new product, the first step was to expand awareness. Leon and Kevin followed Franklin's plan and hit the streets giving out free samples. A woman approached them, and Kevin handed her some to try, telling her to spread the word. Franklin wasn't idle either. Knowing his uncle had major influence in the black community, he gave him some product to test, with one condition: don't sell to white people or Mexicans. Good grief, did this kid want to destroy his own people? Franklin then promised his uncle that if they sold only in the neighboring blocks, they could make 7 figures a month. Hearing that, his uncle and aunt immediately agreed. Everything was going according to plan. That evening, Franklin went to the park to check on the giveaway. Leon had been handing out product all day without making a single dollar, and he was annoyed. When Franklin teased him, he grew even more irritated. Leon complained that Franklin did the least but wanted the biggest cut. Franklin responded that everything they had came from his hard work and risk. Then he threw a stack of cash at Leon's face. There's an old saying, patience avoids trouble, but young people these days say, if you give an inch, 9 people step on your head. The argument escalated, and Leon and Franklin threw punches at each other. Only Kevin's intervention calmed things down. Franklin told Leon they were sitting on a gold mine, yet he was arguing over something trivial. Leon refused to listen, and both stormed off angrily. The next day, Franklin took Kevin to the park to see how people reacted to the new product. As soon as they arrived, they saw people who had received free samples the day before waiting eagerly, hoping to be the first ones to buy. Seeing that, Franklin knew his dream of building his own territory was becoming real. After a busy round of sales, Franklin made a lot of money and headed home to produce more. But upon arriving, he found chaos in his backyard, and Leon lying on the ground, severely injured. Leon told Franklin that Lenny had done this to him. Franklin immediately called an ambulance. When he returned, Leon reminded him to hide the drugs. Franklin froze. He had nearly forgotten the most important thing: someone got shot, so the police would definitely come. Franklin sprinted into the house, stuffed all the product into a backpack, and rushed outside, but couldn't find a place to hide it. Noticing a neighbor's open window, he slipped inside, hid the backpack in their closet, and hurried back to check on Leon. Someone had dared to harm his brother. Franklin swore Lenny would pay. To avenge Leon, he immediately went to Crane and demanded she summon Ray Ray for a meeting. Crane was stunned that Franklin was giving her orders and didn't understand why she should comply. Franklin told Crane that if she could arrange a meeting with Ray Ray, he would supply her with higher quality product. This made Crane stop and think. Cut to Franklin meeting Ray Ray at a diner. Ray Ray had no idea why Franklin wanted to see him. He said Franklin was the one who beat up Lenny first and even trashed his house, so wasn't Lenny's revenge perfectly reasonable? Franklin pointed at the scar on his head and said if they hadn't attacked him first, none of this mess would have happened. Then he warned Ray Ray that his neighbor was a cop who had seen 2 suspicious men lurking around and wanted Franklin to come identify them. Hearing this, Ray Ray panicked. He didn't want to go to jail. He asked Franklin what he really wanted. You wanted to talk to me today? No, not to talk. Then why are we here? To discuss business, because we both love the same thing, right? Money. After their meeting, Ray Ray left the diner in a daze. So what exactly had Franklin told him? Franklin looked at the pile of cash on the table and smiled. This was the real potential of the new product, half a table full of money in just one day. But even between family, money had to be clear. His uncle asked how much of the profit he would get. I can give you 10%, 40, 20. That's generous already. Let's call it 25. All right, good. That's my family. Franklin's empire grew fast, but his mother faced losing her job. She had clashed with her company, and her boss refused to write her a recommendation letter. Franklin calmly pulled out a stack of cash and told her to rest. Money was the one thing he now had plenty of. Back in his room, Franklin packed his belongings, ready to commit himself fully to his empire. His background wasn't ideal, but his ambition was enormous. That day, Franklin visited Drexler to restock. Their partnership had been smooth, but his uncle complained the product was too expensive and demanded a discount. That comment angered Drexler. I need to remind you who the boss is. As a result, Drexler raised the price even higher. Franklin knew his personality. Resisting was pointless. After they left, his uncle suggested staking out Drexler's place. In 3 days, they could identify Drexler's supplier, then buy directly from them at a cheaper price. Franklin said nothing and walked away. Then Franklin visited Leon, who had just been discharged. With his injuries, he would need plenty of rest. To streamline production, the group rented an entire house to manufacture and store product. But while they were inspecting the house, Franklin received a message from Ray Ray. His plan was working. They went to a secret location. Soon, a car arrived and Ray Ray stepped out. They opened the trunk and dragged out Lenny, the man who nearly killed Leon. Seeing Franklin, Lenny seemed to know exactly how this would end. "You traitor, is this good enough? I'm afraid it's not. I need to make sure this never gets out." After everything he had been through, Franklin's heart had hardened. He tossed a stack of cash to Ray Ray and told him that working with him meant never having to worry about money, but he needed to know if Ray Ray was trustworthy. After Franklin's tempting offer, Ray Ray's eyes slowly hardened. He picked up the knife on the ground, but when it came time to act, he hesitated. Franklin pulled out his gun, giving him a choice. Under pressure, Ray Ray finally killed the man who used to be his leader. "This is the price for messing with me." That night, Franklin revealed his true power for the first time. From then on, a part of the city belonged to him. As Season 1 neared its end, Franklin's operation finally began running smoothly. Every member of his crew knew their responsibility. But while they were resting, a snack truck parked right in the middle of their territory. "Who's got money? You got money, kid. Nothing's free in this world. Bunch of broke kids. Don't touch my truck. From now on, every time you pass this street, you stop. Whatever these kids want, you give it to them. I'll pay for it." A poor young man who becomes the king of the cocaine trade overnight, what kind of life would that be? This is the price for crossing me. Through bold decisions and reckless ambition, Franklin built his own territory in Los Angeles. He controlled all drug sales in the black community and created a safe distribution network. They hid cocaine inside chip bags, using a snack truck as cover. They handed out free snacks to kids while quietly selling to customers who came for drugs. At the end of each day, they carried trash bags filled with cash. The core team brought the money back to storage. Franklin finally lived his dream, counting so much money his hands cramped. Money became nothing more than numbers to him. Until one day, Franklin visited Drexler to restock. Business was booming, and even Drexler had begun to reassess the boy he once underestimated. Suddenly, one of Drexler's men ran in, followed by a swarm of police officers. Franklin grabbed Leon and fled. "Stop running." Leon wasn't fast enough and was arrested on the spot. Franklin escaped and regrouped with his uncle. They went to see a well-known lawyer. After hearing Franklin's account, the lawyer said Leon was charged with a serious offense, requiring a $50,000 bail, a lifetime of earnings for most people, but for them, it wasn't much. Leon was bailed out quickly. This was California. With money, almost anything was possible. Franklin would never abandon his brothers. But once Drexler was arrested, a world-shaking conspiracy fell directly onto Franklin's shoulders. Whether it was an opportunity or a disaster depended on how Franklin handled it. It turned out Drexler was an undercover operative for the CIA. Their drug operation meant all the cocaine he sold was supplied by the agency. The illegal profits were funneled through Congress to fund foreign wars. The reasons behind this, well, we don't need to say too much. Soon, Agent Teddy received a call from his superiors. With Drexler arrested, a huge sum, $20 million, had to be replaced immediately. His orders were to fix the problem at once. "Can you handle it?" "Yes, sir." "Good, that's what I wanted to hear." And because of that, Teddy set his sights on Franklin, who was thriving in the business. That night, Franklin was heading out. He sped down the dark road. But within seconds, a staged car crash stopped him. The driver rushed out, stunned him with a taser, then pressed a chloroform-soaked cloth to his face until he passed out. When he woke up, Franklin was confused by his surroundings. Then he saw Leon, tied up just like him. That's when Franklin realized the accident was a setup. A man walked in, a CIA operative. He pointed a gun at Franklin's head and asked if he knew who he was. Franklin was too terrified to guess. Teddy, disappointed, aimed the gun at Leon instead. He asked again. Seeing his friend about to die, Franklin finally realized who Teddy was, the supplier behind Drexler. Teddy was pleased. The kid wasn't completely clueless. This was merely a test. With Drexler gone, Teddy needed a new distributor, and Franklin was his pick. Franklin suddenly understood. This was a huge opportunity. Dealing directly with the supplier could multiply their profits. He told Teddy he could move 10 kilos a week, and the demand was still growing. Teddy's eyes lit up. After some negotiation, the two agreed to work together, unaware that this partnership would one day create a terrifying empire. After leaving, Franklin didn't rush home. He was curious about how Teddy transported product. Teddy showed him, and Franklin realized just how small his world had been. Seeing Franklin's curiosity, Teddy gave him a full tour, but Franklin didn't know that while he was gone, chaos had erupted back home. Kevin's guys were selling on the street when a woman approached and bought everything they had. Greedy and careless, they forgot Franklin's rule, no sales to Mexicans or white buyers. The woman left her business card, then drove straight to the Mexicans' territory to report a new drug selling extremely well in the black community, a potential threat to their empire. She meant nothing by it, but the Mexicans took it seriously. That night, they planned to send Franklin's crew a message to remind them who truly ran Los Angeles. A man walked into the black neighborhood, smirking at the young dealer on the sidewalk. Before the boy could react, the man stabbed him repeatedly. Another dealer pulled out a gun, but the attacker didn't flinch. He charged forward and slit his throat. Within seconds, both street dealers were dead. The next day, when Kevin heard his men were killed, he rushed to gather the crew. Enough was enough. Everyone grabbed weapons, ready to avenge their fallen brothers. Today, no matter what, the Mexicans would pay. The entire crew went to the Mexicans' territory, but after waiting half a day no one showed. Kevin wanted to storm inside, but right then, Franklin arrived. "Go home now, we're leaving." Back home, Franklin exploded with anger. He was gone for half a day and chaos had erupted. He scolded everyone. If the Mexicans dared to attack openly, it meant they were confident. Charging into their territory was nothing but suicide. After calming down, Franklin asked what happened. Learning that a woman had left a business card earlier that day, and then the murders happened that night, Franklin immediately called the number. Once she answered, Franklin questioned her about why his men died after her visit. The woman sounded confused. "Are you sure?" "Don't play dumb. 2 of my guys are dead, and you're asking if I'm sure. I don't know. I haven't heard anything." "Who are you, Lucia? Do you know who killed my men?" "Not yet." Lucia said she would look into it, and they arranged a meeting. She knew that if this misunderstanding wasn't cleared, cooperation would be impossible. Franklin was no longer some random boy. The next day, they met. The man accompanying Lucia was shocked. Wasn't this the same black teenager he once saved from the Mexicans? He couldn't believe how successful Franklin had become. After some small talk, Franklin and Lucia pulled aside to speak privately. Franklin was firm. He held valuable resources, and if she wanted a partnership, she had to find the killer. Lucia said she knew who did it. "The man who killed your guys, when he was alive, if any of you touched him, a Mexican strike team would hunt you down, and anyone connected to you." But Franklin insisted, before any partnership, he had to avenge his men. Lucia understood and asked for time to negotiate a deal that would satisfy both sides. Kevin, however, refused to work. His friends were dead. How could Franklin bow to anyone? He accused Franklin of being a coward despite being the boss. Leon stepped in, trying to calm them with just a look. Eventually, both stormed off in anger. That night, Teddy met Franklin at a cemetery for their first exchange. One-hand cash, one-hand product, fast and clean. Franklin's business officially shifted from small-time to large-scale. With a steady supply, production was no longer a problem, but his uncle worried, with so much product, how would they sell it all? "We need to distribute it smart, leave the selling to me." As business grew, Franklin's ambition grew with it. After losing his men, he realized the flaw in his operation, no protection, and then a wild idea formed in his mind, building a fully armed private militia. Franklin had become so famous lately that many dangerous groups began targeting him. His crew was worried, so he went to a mercenary who was an old friend of his uncle and asked him to pull some strings to get weapons. Franklin then gathered all his men at a secret location and handed each of them a gun. He had only one rule: if anyone threatened them, they must shoot back without hesitation. But if anyone used their weapon for wrongdoing, they would be punished the same as a traitor. After some training, Franklin's private armed force was finally formed. His strength was now enough for him to establish a solid position in Los Angeles. As soon as he returned, Franklin happened to see Drexler, newly released from prison, walking down the street. Drexler was clearly there to find him. He wasn't angry about Franklin finding a new supplier, because he believed they would eventually work together again. It showed how much Franklin's position in L.A. had risen. Franklin used to risk his life just to ask for Drexler's cooperation. Now Drexler came to him, asking for a partnership, but Franklin refused since he already had a supplier. Drexler didn't insist, he simply wrote down his address and number, telling Franklin to think it over. After Drexler left, Franklin went to Teddy for advice. Teddy was surprised. Drexler was arrested with tons of drugs and weapons, so how did he get released this quickly? Clearly he had struck a deal with the CIA. This ruined Teddy's plan, so they decided to confront Drexler. The next day, they went to the address Drexler gave them and found him eating steak. Teddy asked to speak privately. As the supplier who had been pushed out, Drexler was furious, but Teddy explained that Franklin now handled the drug distribution and suggested they collaborate in another area. Since the CIA spent enormous amounts annually on foreign wars, Teddy proposed supplying military-grade weapons to Drexler, a highly profitable arrangement. Drexler had no reason to refuse, and they shook hands. As for Franklin, the one who replaced him, Drexler held no grudge. Deep down, he still liked the kid. "It's a pleasure doing business with you." Seeing Drexler so calm actually scared Franklin a bit, so he asked, "So was there ever a time in our partnership when you weren't happy?" Drexler replied, "What else can I say? My tolerance has no limit." Back home, Franklin relaxed playing cards with his uncle, but he didn't know he wouldn't be smiling for long. Something big was happening across the city, something that would affect even Franklin's territory. Two Mexican groups were making a deal when a fight broke out over who actually ran the area. Gustavo warned the bald guy not to act tough on home turf, but the man pulled out a knife, escalating everything. Hearing the other group shouting insults, Gustavo finally snapped, but he knew, after this incident, trouble was coming. They all knew how dangerous the Mexicans truly were. As expected, the next day the rival group showed up at Lucia and Gustavo's home demanding answers. Where was the man who came to trade last night? Lucia avoided the question, and the visitors weren't stupid. They immediately pointed their guns at the two. The female boss leading the group told her men to leave so she could talk privately with Lucia, but mid-conversation, she exposed Lucia's lie. She couldn't believe Lucia dared deceive her, and swore Lucia would pay dearly. Terrified, Lucia scrambled to save herself, claiming she could obtain the recipe for the new cocaine and deliver it directly to the boss. Hearing this, the woman granted her one more chance, but warned her coldly. "If you try anything, you won't be the only one who dies. I'll kill your whole family. From here all the way down to Mexico, every last one with your blood will die." Lucia didn't dare argue. That night, she met Franklin. She and Gustavo offered him the killer who murdered his men plus $1 million in exchange for the recipe to the new cocaine, begging Franklin to help them survive their situation. But Franklin rejected them immediately. The recipe for the new product was his fastest path to ruling the underworld. He couldn't hand it over to anyone. He left without hesitation, unaware that this conversation would nearly drag him into irreversible ruin. Lucia and Gustavo didn't give up. They went to Kevin, Franklin's brother-in-arms, hoping he would give them what Franklin refused. "We have something for you. Do you want to know who killed your cousin? We can take you to him, tell you where he is, show you how to get him." Kevin asked, "Why are you doing this?" "Because we want Franklin's recipe." They wanted Kevin to betray Franklin. On one side was revenge for his cousin, on the other was loyalty to his brother. Kevin was torn. Lucia didn't push him, she simply told him to think and left her number. With his unique recipe, Franklin's business in Los Angeles soared. His grand dream was to expand globally, to franchise his drug empire like McDonald's. "This is my life's dream." But dreams are always beautiful until reality crushes them. Franklin never expected that at the most crucial point of his life, his closest brother, Kevin, would betray him. To avenge his cousin, Kevin traded Franklin's recipe to Lucia. To show sincerity, they took Kevin to a park and told him the killer was a Mexican gang member who visited family every weekend for 3 hours, the perfect window for revenge. After confirming the schedule, Kevin returned and taught Lucia the recipe. With the formula in hand, Lucia went to the boss, ending her feud with the Mexican gang. As soon as Lucia left, the undercover agent shadowing her alerted the police to move in, and when it came to criminals, the agent showed no mercy. Lucia was arrested, and to reduce her sentence, she suddenly named Franklin. The police had been wanting to sweep all drug dealers out of Los Angeles, so they weren't about to waste such a golden opportunity. Right then, Lucia's phone rang, and the caller was Franklin. When she answered, Franklin asked what Kevin had told her and how he even knew the killer's identity. Franklin had just heard from Leon that Kevin left the crew and went after the killer alone. He immediately realized Lucia was involved, and that this could ignite a war between his crew and the Mexicans. To prevent a bloodbath, Franklin urgently asked where Kevin was. The police signaled Lucia to tell the truth and instructed her to give Franklin the park location where the killer usually visited on weekends. They just needed everyone to show up so they could swoop in. "Your friend is at Acuna Park. You should get there fast." Franklin rushed to the location. Soon, Kevin, Leon, and Franklin arrived at the same time. Franklin pleaded with Kevin. Until they were powerful enough, they had to swallow their pride to keep the peace. If they killed a Mexican, the gang would storm into the black neighborhood seeking revenge, but Kevin was blinded by rage. Even if it meant going against Franklin himself, he was determined to avenge his cousin. Seeing Kevin refuse to listen, Franklin knew, if the killer died today, everything he'd built would collapse, and everyone he loved would be in danger. "I can't let this happen, Kevin." But Kevin wouldn't stop. He pulled the trigger, barely missing his target. Seeing Kevin still charging forward, Franklin had no choice. He fired and brought his best friend down. The police hiding nearby heard the gunshot and rushed in. Leon panicked and dragged Franklin away. Kevin, hit in a major artery, died quickly. After escaping, Franklin was crushed with guilt, but he didn't know that this was only the first lesson on his road to becoming the most powerful man in the game. Back home, the two hid in a room. Having never faced anything like this, Franklin was lost. He called his uncle over to figure out what to do. With a murder involved, his uncle said the only option was to run and lay low. Franklin had no time to think. He had to abandon his business, unsure when he'd return. That night, before fleeing, Franklin wanted to see his mother one last time. They hugged tightly, but before they could speak much, footsteps sounded outside. Franklin tried to escape through the back, but police had surrounded the house. He was arrested on the spot, dragged into a patrol car under the watch of the entire neighborhood. This moment marked the turning point, the birth of a notorious kingpin rising from the lowest rung of society. The once unstoppable black kid who ruled the streets had been betrayed by his closest friend, losing everything in a single night. His first time in jail terrified him. He couldn't even protect his favorite pair of sneakers. But Franklin understood one truth: a real man endures short-term losses for long-term victory. His only goal now was to find a way out on bail and rebuild his empire. Soon, the day of Franklin's hearing arrived. The judge had barely mentioned the bail amount before the prosecution objected, saying Franklin was arrested while attempting to flee. They claimed he couldn't be trusted if released. The judge denied bail, making the case even harder to resolve. After the hearing, Franklin was taken to the general holding cell. As soon as he found his bunk, he recognized someone, Ray, whose leader Franklin had killed. "I knew it, I didn't mistake you." Ray introduced Franklin to the guys behind him, saying they all grew up in the same neighborhood. They once had issues, but eventually worked together. Seeing Ray let the past go, Franklin did the same. But late that night, Ray returned with two men and beat Franklin brutally. Clearly, Ray never thought about consequences. Franklin was knocked out and lay on the floor until morning. The next day, family visited. Seeing Franklin's battered face, his uncle promised to find a way to bail him out. Leon also shared his jail experience. "Walk back to your bunk. The first guy you see, beat him down so they know not to mess with you. All right, no, look at him. He's pissed off enough." Returning to the cell, Franklin went straight to his bunk. That night, Ray tried to come at him again, but this time, Franklin spotted him first. Right then, another inmate did something reckless, forcing both sides to stop. This made Franklin realize he couldn't stay here long, or he'd end up like that inmate by tomorrow. The next day, Franklin tracked down the man who stole his shoes and punched him without a word. Even when guards pulled him away, he didn't stop swinging. Franklin was placed in solitary confinement for fighting. When released, he went straight to Ray, carrying the same arrogant attitude he once had outside, and warned him. "You ask me why I'm here. I killed my best friend, but my people are still outside. They know your family lives on 48th Street. If any of you touch me again, I'll wipe out your whole family. You know I don't make empty threats." Ray wasn't happy, but after that, no one dared bother Franklin again. Meanwhile, Teddy, Franklin's CIA handler, was also busy. Using his authority, he approached the detective on Franklin's case and pressured her to stand down for the sake of national security. Franklin was now a crucial asset. If she backed off, CIA promised that once the mission ended, they would hand over all major drug producers and distributors. Knowing she couldn't fight the system, the detective reluctantly agreed. Franklin was declared innocent and released. He visited Kevin's grave, remembering their days fighting side by side. Teddy remained his partner. With such a powerful backer, Franklin knew his path would be long. But from this experience, Franklin learned a painful truth. To avoid mistakes and survive, he had to become the coldest, most ruthless version of himself. Only then could his empire last. "I figured Teddy was working for the government, so does that make me a legitimate businessman now?" After getting out of jail, this young black man became a drug kingpin overnight, powerful enough to rule the streets. Under his leadership, the business grew rapidly. He bought his mother a house and even opened a bar in the neighborhood. It was a true overnight rise to power. But that night, another crew targeted his operation. They approached armed, planning to hijack a drug truck. Just as they got close, Leon and his men showed up. Franklin's operation had grown into a real organization, disciplined and lethal. Anyone who tried to touch the truck would be shot instantly. That ruthlessness was a major part of Franklin's rise. Meanwhile, the driver who escaped returned to his gang's hideout and reported everything. Their leader, Miller, wasn't scared at all. In fact, he seemed excited. He even saw a potential opportunity. At the same time, Leon reported the incident to Franklin. It was clear the rival crew intended to invade their territory, even if no losses occurred. Daring to strike at Franklin's people meant they had to pay. Franklin immediately ordered his men. "I want everything on them, their hideout, their dealers, their production spot, and the person pulling their strings." Franklin intended to make an example out of them. By the next day, his men had gathered all intel. As the saying goes, know your enemy, know yourself, you'll win every battle. With the information in hand, Franklin planned to wipe them out that very night. Just then, another subordinate came running in. Miller wanted a meeting with Franklin. Everyone was surprised, but Franklin allowed him in. Miller entered and got straight to the point. "You didn't lose money or product, but 2 of my guys were killed. Give me a chance to settle this." Miller offered to buy product directly from Franklin and hand over the escaping driver. At that moment, Franklin changed his mind. If the enemy had bowed their head, he had no reason to reject such an easy win. Franklin added that the driver must die. The statement carried 2 meanings. If Miller hadn't come today, he'd meet the same fate, and if Miller dared protect the driver, Franklin would kill him and everyone he cared about. No one imagined that just months ago Franklin was a nobody, and now even Miller had to treat him as an equal. After Miller left, Leon immediately went to the driver's house. As soon as he saw the target, he shot him. "You cross them, you die." The next day, Franklin's uncle opened the bar and found it completely trashed. Who dared to make a mess on Franklin's turf? His aunt informed Franklin. He was visibly irritated. After investigating, he learned Crane was responsible. Franklin showed no visible reaction, but his silence said everything. The next day, Crane was found dead at home. Police immediately sealed off the crime scene. Franklin was still doing business with his new client, Miller. He had no idea that his own arrogance had already sparked a new conspiracy forming against him. Andre, a police officer who also lived in the black neighborhood, couldn't stand seeing his community fall deeper into chaos. He requested a warrant from his superiors to raid and arrest every drug dealer operating on his block. Meanwhile, Franklin visited his former partner Drexler to ask how to deal with all the money he was making. Because he was black, Franklin couldn't just deposit a huge amount in a bank. Cops would be all over him instantly. Drexler told him to leave that matter to him. Before leaving, he warned Franklin. "Don't get too greedy. The moment you do, they'll find your weakness, and you'll lose your advantage." And later, those words would prove painfully true. That day, Franklin's crew was studying the city map, planning their next expansion. Drexler suddenly arrived, rushing in because of the money issue. He said he wanted to open Franklin's eyes, but first they needed to gather at least $1 million. Franklin paused for a moment, then followed Drexler to the bank, but Drexler didn't take him inside. Instead, he told Franklin to wait 2 days because the banker who handled his transactions was out of town. One glance was enough for Franklin to know he was lying. He demanded the truth, threatening to leave immediately. With no other choice, Drexler confessed. Turns out, not long ago Drexler had shipped a load of weapons overseas. Trying to save money, he took a shortcut, and both the shipment and his men vanished. Now he owed money he couldn't pay back, and helping Franklin was his only chance to stay alive. Out of respect for the help Drexler once gave him, Franklin agreed to help. "I need 2 weeks. Fine, let's go get your money." But Franklin didn't know that while he was gone, disaster was unfolding back home. The LAPD had prepared a massive raid, deploying a large force to sweep through the black neighborhood and crack down on every drug operation. Police surrounded the area, arresting gang members everywhere. They stormed Franklin's production site, arresting many of his workers. His uncle shouted angrily at them, but they ignored him and smashed the family's belongings with sledgehammers. His uncle was furious, but with so many officers around, he was powerless. At that moment, Officer Andre walked in, looked at the arrested men, and gave a cold, satisfied smile. The next day, Franklin returned and learned what happened. He immediately used every connection he had to bail out his people. The raid had devastated his operation, and what angered him the most was seeing the entire production site sealed off. Franklin confronted one of his men, demanding to know if he'd snitched. The man denied it, claiming they must have messed up somehow. Franklin slapped him hard. He had no proof, but he knew all too well how stupid his crew could be. "You think I don't know the stupid things you guys do? If you do your job right, we protect you, every damn time. But if you bite the hand that feeds you..." Franklin wasn't being cruel to his own men, but if he didn't root out the mole now, everything he'd built would crumble. His actions were a warning. Betrayal comes with a price so high no one can afford to pay it. Then his aunt told Franklin that Officer Andre had targeted them. He was the mastermind behind the raid. Just then, the phone rang. Franklin's uncle had been discharged from the hospital. The whole family rushed to pick him up. Seeing his uncle's condition, Franklin's face turned dark. He swore Andre would pay dearly for this. Ironically, Andre's daughter was Franklin's girlfriend. Dealing with his potential future father-in-law, Franklin couldn't strike recklessly. He needed a plan that solved the problem without destroying everything. The opportunity came quickly. That night, Andre went out celebrating with coworkers and met an attractive woman. They hit it off instantly, talking like old friends. Andre didn't realize that the prettier a woman is, the better she tends to lie. The next morning, Andre woke up feeling terrible. Something about the glasses on the nightstand fell off. He opened the drawer. His gun and badge were gone. At that moment, all he wanted to do was report the crime. He'd clearly been set up. Meanwhile, that same woman was hugging Franklin's aunt. When she left, Andre's gun and badge were placed neatly on the table. The whole crew stared at them, deciding what to do with this gift. It was the gift Franklin prepared for his future father-in-law, and things unfolded exactly as Franklin expected. Losing his gun and badge under such suspicious circumstances got Andre suspended immediately. With Andre out of the way, Franklin's business quickly returned to normal. Teddy soon learned about Franklin's production site being shut down and came to warn him. Teddy warned him, if local police couldn't contain the situation, the military would step in, and if that happened, even Teddy wouldn't be able to save him. But Franklin still believed in high risk, high reward. Teddy realized this young man was becoming more uncontrollable than ever. Wanting to grow even bigger, Franklin abandoned street-level business. It made money, but it couldn't scale. He set his sights on the big players in L.A., planning to use their resources to take over the entire market. The next day, Franklin stepped outside and ran into Andre, now officially suspended. Franklin gave him a knowing smirk before driving off. Andre instantly understood. He'd been played. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. That night, Andre met with a trusted colleague at the police station. I want to bring Franklin down. Should have done it a long time ago. I can't just frame him. That kid's protected from above. Find me his address. All right, then we take him down together. When Andre got home, he hung up his keys and noticed his daughter still wasn't back. He waited on the couch, but when he woke up, she was still gone. She had never stayed out all night before. A bad feeling crept over him. Something was wrong. He was about to head to his daughter's friend's house when he noticed the car keys were gone. Andre rushed outside, and sure enough, the car was missing too. In just one day, both his career and family had fallen apart. He was reaching his breaking point. As a veteran cop, Andre found himself doing the only thing he could, reporting it. After asking around, someone said they saw Melody return home around 2 a.m., but she left again shortly after. While everyone was still trying to guess where Melody might be, a call came in. Andre's colleague answered. The missing car had been found, but the scene didn't look promising. Andre's beloved car had been stripped apart. Inside, he found a fake nail, the same design Melody had just gotten. In that moment, he knew her disappearance was tied to the criminal underworld. Desperate to confirm whether his daughter was still alive, Andre swallowed his pride and went to Franklin. He told him Melody hadn't come home all night and explained everything, hoping Franklin could use his connections to find her. Franklin didn't say yes or no, but his eyes grew colder. Everyone knew Melody was his girlfriend. Someone had dared to touch what was his. Even though he and her father were like oil and water, Melody had nothing to do with that. Franklin swore that whoever hurt her would pay dearly. Franklin immediately ordered his men to search the entire city. Soon after, they reported that Leon's ex-girlfriend Wanda had been seen in the same car with Melody that morning, meaning, to find Melody, they had to find Wanda. Wanda had been hanging around Miller recently, so he might know something, but when they arrived, Miller claimed he'd kicked her out long ago to avoid problems with Leon. Still, he led them to another spot, a drug house Wanda might have gone to. As soon as Franklin stepped inside, he spotted clothing on the floor, Melody's clothes. His expression darkened as he walked straight to a closed door and knocked. A man opened the door and warned Franklin not to knock again, but the moment he saw Franklin's furious expression, his tone softened. Franklin asked if he'd seen two girls. Seriously, you guys just looking for girls? Cut the crap. We're not joking. He's asking you. Franklin searched the place but found nothing. Leon, kill him. Wait. Just then, Franklin's phone rang. His men had found Melody, though her condition wasn't good. Franklin spared the man. You're lucky today. Turns out, when Melody got home the night before, her father was already asleep. She grabbed some stash money and took his car to buy drugs, but at the spot, a girl suddenly got into her car, Wanda. When Melody mentioned she wanted to buy drugs, Wanda told her she knew a cheaper place. Melody had no reason to refuse, so she drove off with her. Coincidentally, Franklin's men witnessed this moment. Meanwhile, the two girls arrived at a rundown house in a remote area. Wanda went inside to buy drugs while Melody waited in the car. Suddenly, a man appeared, dragged Melody out, then slammed the gas pedal and sped off. Trouble had arrived. When Wanda came back out, she realized Melody had been picked up by someone. She didn't seem too concerned and even comforted Melody, saying it was probably just someone playing a prank. They grabbed something to eat as Wanda said, they'll return the car soon, but peaceful moments never last. As they were about to leave, Wanda noticed the necklace around Melody's neck. What are you doing? No, Wanda, that's my mother's necklace. Wanda grabbed the necklace and went inside to trade it for more drugs, but to the thugs inside, the sentimental necklace was worthless. Melody regained consciousness and rushed in to stop her. What's wrong with you, Melody? What do you want? Not long after, Franklin and Leon were led by their men to a hidden location. Melody was inside. When they entered, she was huddled in a corner, terrified. Franklin didn't say a word. He grabbed her, pulled her outside, and drove her home. Andre finally breathed again, seeing his daughter safe. Where did you find her? If I were you, I wouldn't let her out of my sight. Franklin briefly wondered what all of this was really for, but the thought faded quickly. His dream had never changed. Everything happening now was just a stepping stone to something bigger. Through multiple channels, Franklin discovered that his partner Teddy actually worked for the CIA, meaning their entire operation was unofficial, unrecognized, and potentially disposable. Franklin could be killed at any time, so he stayed alert. But Franklin didn't expect the faction opposing Teddy to send a female operative. She immediately sought out Andre, who was already quietly investigating Franklin. She revealed her identity and said they shared a common goal, taking down drug lords like Franklin. She told Andre that Franklin was protected from above, and her mission was to give Andre a fair shot. She left a piece of paper behind. When Andre opened it, he was stunned. The next day, using the information she gave him, Andre arrived at a secluded house. After confirming it was empty, he took a massive bolt cutter from his trunk, cut the internet and alarm cables, then broke in through the window. Inside, he found a thick steel door. He cut the lock open, and what waited behind it was a room filled with cash, Franklin's stash house, but that alone wasn't enough to convict him. Andre tore through the house looking for more evidence, his stolen gun, his missing badge, but after hours, he found nothing. Furious, he started smashing things, and in that chaos, he stumbled upon a shocking secret. Inside a drawer was a folder, Franklin's dossier on Teddy. Andre read it and froze. The very man creating the monsters he'd spent years trying to destroy was working for the CIA. No wonder Franklin walked free even after committing murder. Meanwhile, Franklin arrived home and found his house completely trashed. He rushed to his stash room and saw the money untouched. That only made him more uneasy. He checked his files, and just as he feared, someone had gone through everything. At the same time, Teddy realized something was wrong and immediately called Franklin. We've got a problem, our operation's been exposed. How? I don't know, I'll update you when I find out. Wait, someone just broke into my house. Is that connected? How bad is it? Did they take anything? No. Only then did Teddy calm down a little. He told Franklin to lay low for a while until things cooled off, and promised he'd reach out when it was safe. After hanging up, Franklin pieced it together. If Teddy didn't steal the files, then who did? Judging by the emotional destruction inside the house, it was someone acting personally. There was only one possibility, Melody's father, Andre. Meanwhile, Teddy returned to the CIA safe house. He knew the female operative from the opposing faction was behind everything. This was his operation, his chessboard, and he wouldn't let anyone disrupt it. I'll salvage this mission, and after that, you'll be locked in an underground office doing meaningless work for the rest of your career. Meanwhile, Franklin barged into Andre's house, demanding he put all the files into a bag. He still didn't grasp how catastrophic this could be. If exposed, everything behind him would collapse. But because Andre was Melody's father, Franklin decided to give him one chance. Forget everything you saw, Andre, take Melody and leave, don't ever come back. Who are you really protecting? Do you even understand he doesn't care about you? Leave LA forever. No, I'm reporting all of this tomorrow. Seeing Andre's stubbornness, Franklin had no choice but to kill his future father-in-law. He wiped the fingerprints off the gun and staged the scene as a suicide. From that moment on, Franklin officially crossed the line into darkness. Meanwhile, Leon kept causing trouble with Miller over his ex-girlfriend, even trying to take Miller's territory. Feeling wronged, Miller went to Franklin asking for compensation and a price cut. Franklin bluntly told him to find another supplier if he wanted lower prices, and warned him, "If you touch even one finger on Leon, I'll wipe out your entire family." Feeling unfairly treated, Miller swallowed his anger. After that, Franklin warned Leon that if he kept picking fights with Miller, Franklin himself would beat him down. "Every time you start a fight, I'm the one cleaning up after you. Don't go to his territory again. If you do, find your own operation." "You're joking, right?" "Not at all." As Franklin's empire grew, so did the darkness in his mindset. On the other side, Melody was devastated after hearing her father had died. Back in her room, she noticed something only she would recognize. Every time Franklin visited, he never closed the window. Realizing the truth, Melody went straight to Nix, her father's colleague, and told him Franklin killed Andre, begging him to help bring Franklin down. That night, Franklin was pulled over by a police car. The officer blocking his path was none other than Nix. He drew his gun and told Franklin to put both hands on the wheel, but then, unexpectedly, Nix slid into the passenger seat and bluntly said he knew Franklin had killed Andre. Franklin thought his fate was sealed, but Nix suddenly changed his tone. He said that if Franklin could offer him the right benefit, he might be willing to look the other way. "Money really can buy anything." "Huh, exactly. As long as you have enough, I've got plenty." And just like that, Franklin escaped death, for now, but he had no idea an even greater disaster was coming. Later, Nix told Melody the autopsy results. Her father's death was ruled a suicide. Melody refused to accept it, and knew she'd have to uncover the truth herself. On the day of Andre's funeral, Melody sat quietly in a corner, staring at Franklin. Moments later, she ran out of the house. Franklin thought she couldn't handle the grief and followed her to comfort her, but the next second, Franklin instantly realized she knew everything. She had found out the truth. He tried desperately to crawl away. His dream wasn't fulfilled. He couldn't die here, but fate continued to mock him. After shooting him, Melody tossed the gun aside, leaving Franklin bleeding on the floor. Was everything truly about to end right here? As he drifted toward death, Franklin dreamed of a beautiful alternate life. If he could start over, would things end better? In his dream, Kevin was still alive, and the three of them laughed together on the streets like old times. He imagined himself graduating high school, going to college, but his advisor, like many white authority figures, stripped away his scholarship over one tiny mistake. Teddy, now a CIA instructor, noticed Franklin's exceptional adaptability and intelligence. He personally approached Franklin and told him that once he graduated, the CIA's doors would always be open for him. In this dream, Melody was still pure and untouched by addiction. Their love was still innocent. Franklin's aunt and uncle even had a child and lived a peaceful life. Leon, in this dream, married Wanda and had a beautiful child. They didn't have money, but lived happily. Yet all these beautiful images were as fragile as soap bubbles. One touch and they shattered. Reality returned. Franklin, severely wounded, was saved just in time by his father, but he had been unconscious for far too long. His crew in the black neighborhood became leaderless. Other gangs immediately seized the chance to take over his territory. Former partners were now pointing guns at each other. The entire neighborhood erupted into chaos, a new, unprecedented era of violence. Franklin watched the news, absorbing what had happened, but his ambition remained intact. His parents couldn't understand why he refused to walk away. They had money now, enough to leave the streets forever, but Franklin couldn't. Leaving now meant abandoning his dream, a dream of building a distribution empire that spanned the whole nation. "Do you see what's happening out there?" "Yes. That's exactly why I can't leave. You can't control this anymore. But I will take everything back. I'm the chosen one, the only one. Everyone who betrays me, dies." Franklin still had the heart of a man who wanted to rise. Once again, he went to see Teddy. Both of them had suffered losses in different ways. Teddy was relieved to see Franklin back on his feet. It meant he had backed the right man. After brushing shoulders with death, Franklin opened up completely to his partner. He told Teddy he knew he worked for the CIA, and he knew the mission was to funnel money into foreign wars. Franklin would help, but he wasn't Teddy's servant. In return, Teddy had to do something for him. "I'll find every person who threatens stability, then you help me deal with them. That's the only way to control the streets. Once the news stops reporting chaos, we can start making money again." Teddy, of course, didn't refuse. Whatever the outcome, Franklin was ready to risk everything. His era, the era of Franklin Saint, was coming. After surviving death, Franklin became determined to wipe out every gang that caused chaos. While he was recovering, he visited his aunt to understand what had happened. It turned out that ever since Franklin was shot, Miller had been constantly clashing with another gang leader, leading to heavy casualties and throwing the entire black neighborhood into chaos. Franklin decided to give his former partners one last chance. First, he met Scully and urged him to stop the fighting. He was willing to let the past go. But Scully refused. He was dead set on killing every one of Miller's men to avenge his fallen brothers. Miller, on the other hand, wasn't backing down either. To both of them, this was a fight to the death. Seeing their stubbornness, Franklin visited Teddy that night and asked whether the CIA could intervene, but even Teddy couldn't stop a full-scale street war. So Franklin would handle it his own way. They had crossed him, and now he would make them pay. The next day, Franklin went alone to Scully's territory with a sniper rifle. He told Scully that if he wanted guns like this, Franklin could supply them, and that in this war, he would side with Scully. If Scully wanted more, Franklin would take him to buy an entire shipment that night. Impressed, Scully agreed immediately. But as soon as Scully left, Franklin went straight to Miller, repeating the exact same plan. Franklin would lure Scully into the open during the weapons deal, and Miller's men would ambush them. A surprise attack would wipe Scully's crew out instantly. Miller agreed, not realizing he was just a weapon in Franklin's hands. That night, both sides armed up. Miller's men hid inside cargo crates to ambush. When Scully arrived right on time, he instantly sensed danger. Do y'all feel that in the air? Feel what? That damn death energy. Scully fired at the streetlight to test his instincts. Miller's men, thinking they'd been exposed, jumped out and opened fire. The shootout erupted instantly. When Franklin returned, he exploded in anger, calling Miller's men brainless. If they had let Scully get any closer, they would have all died. Now everything depended on fate. If Scully survived the night, hell was coming. Franklin's men wanted to rush over and finish Scully immediately, but Franklin shut it down right away. Nobody knew the exact situation yet. Charging in blindly could get them killed by both sides. He wasn't about to make a stupid move. So he ordered his men to gear up and wait. Everything else would depend on his talk with Miller. Franklin rushed home and told his parents to leave town for their own safety. The next day, Franklin met with Miller to check on Scully's situation. Miller confidently claimed he had shot Scully dead and told Franklin not to worry. But meanwhile, Scully had already been brought home alive, wounded, but far from dead. He had never been tricked this badly in his life, and quietly swore that Franklin would pay for it. That mother F. He's dead, dead. I swear I'm gonna kill him. The kid with a cane had become terrifying. To eliminate rival crews, he even bribed the police, using them as hitmen. Besides the payment, I've got a bonus, 10 grand each, 20. Let me scout the area. Fine. But I have one condition, 48 hours from now, the job's off. Nix and his officers scouted the area, and nearly froze. The place was crawling with heavily armed gangs. This was the exact spot Franklin wanted them to take out. We need to get the hell out of here. Don't drag us into this crap. Let them kill each other instead. Furious, Nix confronted Franklin's father, demanding double protection payments, threatening to destroy Franklin's whole crew if they crossed him again. That night Franklin's father told him everything. Franklin immediately called Nix out and warned him to never bother his family again. You want me to walk into a death trap? No, I'm offering you a high-paying job. If you don't want it, fine, but you stay away from my family, you hear me? Or what can you do to me? Seeing Nix's attitude, Franklin knew he was no longer useful. He simply smiled and left. The next day, Nix was summoned by the chief. I don't know who you pissed off, or maybe someone just doesn't like you. You're being reassigned. Pack your things. Nix was stunned. He never expected Franklin had enough pull to get a police captain to relocate him. Regret came too late. Franklin had removed another threat. That night, Leon was about to take his guys out when he ran into his ex, Wanda. Seeing her miserable state, he gave her some cash. Unexpectedly, that act would save his life. At that moment, Scully's crew approached from afar, and Leon's group didn't even notice. A shootout broke out, and while neither crew suffered losses, Wanda was struck while trying to warn Leon. To say they no longer had feelings would be a lie. Had she never betrayed him, they might have been married now. Leon rushed her to the hospital, and Franklin came as soon as he heard. Leon blamed everything on Franklin. If Franklin hadn't tried to kill Scully, Scully wouldn't have come after them, and Wanda wouldn't be fighting for her life. To avenge his ex-girlfriend, Leon sought out the most well-known private detective in the area, asking him to uncover Scully's hideout and weaknesses. With no real name or photo, only a nickname, the detective said he had no idea where to start, but the moment Leon slammed a stack of cash on the table, his tone changed instantly. All right, I'll see what I can do. Cut to Scully eating fried chicken on the roadside with his crew. The detective hid nearby, snapping photos non-stop, until one of Scully's men suddenly looked straight toward him. Yo, look over there, that dude's taking pictures. The detective froze in terror, goosebumps all over. but at that exact moment, a beautiful woman passed by, distracting Scully's crew completely. An angel just walked by. Turns out they hadn't noticed him at all. After continued surveillance, the detective discovered a spot Scully frequently visited, always going in with a bag and coming out empty-handed. Leon realized it was likely Scully's stash house. Leon and his crew set up surveillance. Hours passed with no sign of Scully. Then suddenly, a middle-aged man crossed the street, followed immediately by a car screeching to a halt. Leon recognized the men inside, Scully's soldiers. That's Leon, right? Yeah, Scully's boy. A street vendor was hit in the crossfire. Leon and his guys rushed down, spotting someone hiding inside the car. Leon stepped forward and opened fire without hesitation. I see you, bastard. Stop, my son. Leon froze in horror. He only meant to ambush Scully. He hadn't expected to face his crew. Normally, police looked the other way when gangs shot each other, but this time Leon had shot a minor. His blood ran cold. His men dragged him away. They abandoned the car in a secluded spot and lit it on fire to destroy evidence. Leon gave his guy a wad of cash and told him to disappear for a while, but moments later, they both sensed something was wrong. What if the car didn't actually explode? Meanwhile, Scully arrived at the hospital. His wife collapsed in tears. The kid Leon shot was Scully's daughter, and the grieving woman wasn't just his wife, she was also Miller's sister. Leon had just opened the gates of hell. Elsewhere, Franklin was in the middle of a business meeting when Miller barged in with his crew. He demanded justice for his dead niece. My niece was murdered. Yeah, me and my brother-in-law have beef, but tragedy brings family together. When my people mess up, I handle it myself. I'll personally deliver the culprit to their crew. I expect you to do the same. Miller's message was clear: hand Leon over, or he'd join forces with Scully. Franklin was trapped in a no-win situation. If he protected Leon, it would mean war against two major gangs. Franklin's uncle said Leon had already formed his own crew. He wasn't worth risking everything, but Franklin needed to know whether the police had any evidence. If the police had proof, Leon would be hunted by both the law and the streets, but if not, Franklin would protect him no matter what. The most urgent task now was finding Leon. They soon found Leon hiding in a homeless encampment. It turned out his family had already blown through all the money he made. Leon didn't have a single dollar left, making even running away nearly impossible. Franklin brought Leon back to his house, telling him not to make phone calls or leave the building until things settled down. Before Franklin left, Leon asked for a gun for protection. Franklin nodded for his uncle to hand one over. Treating Leon this well, under these circumstances, was Franklin being as loyal as he could be. But that same night, two figures slipped quietly into the house. It was Franklin and his uncle. Sorry, Leon. Idiot. You really think after betraying me I'd give you a gun with bullets? You think I'd beg you? Whatever you choose to believe. Leon jolted awake from a nightmare and immediately checked the gun, fully functional. Then came a knock at the door. Through the window, he saw Franklin's mother, the woman who had practically raised him. She had come to cut off his trademark curly hair so he wouldn't be recognized. Leon broke down crying. He had no idea how long it would take for his hair to grow back. Meanwhile, Miller visited his sister and brother-in-law. They set aside their feud and decided to work together. Teddy also met Franklin, informing him that police had found Leon's fingerprints on a shell casing. With evidence like that, even Teddy couldn't help anymore. Franklin's entire crew was now considered accomplices. As long as Leon wasn't caught, the pressure on Franklin would only grow. Everything was spiraling out of control. Feeling suffocated, Leon stepped into the hallway for air, only to see the news broadcasting his wanted notice. Panic washed over him instantly. By the time Franklin went to check on him, Leon was gone. Leon attempted to flee elsewhere but ran straight into Scully's crew. He bolted, and Scully chased after him with a gun, ready to avenge his daughter. At the critical moment, Franklin and his uncle arrived and rescued Leon, but that also meant both rival gangs were now officially Franklin's enemies. That night, Miller showed up with his men, demanding Franklin hand Leon over, or the two sides would go to war until one of them was wiped out. Hand Leon over, then I'll deal with my brother-in-law myself. No, you really want a war over one man? That's what makes me different, Miller. I don't abandon my people. Miller sighed, saying he had respected Franklin for always separating personal feelings from business, but now Franklin had broken his own rules. Miller left. In that moment, they became sworn enemies. The next day, Franklin tried to leave the house but was stopped by police asking where Leon was. Franklin played dumb, infuriating the officer, who warned him. I can arrest you anytime. All I need is an excuse. A little girl is dead. Someone's gonna pay for it. Franklin finally realized he had overlooked something critical: public pressure. He rushed to meet Leon and proposed letting CJ, who was also wanted, take the fall. That way, Leon could return to the streets. Exhausted and cornered, Leon agreed. Leon brought Franklin to meet CJ. CJ thought the danger had passed and that he'd soon be back fighting beside his brothers, but Franklin immediately poured a bucket of cold reality over his head. Franklin explained that they needed CJ to take the blame and deny Leon ever fired a shot, shifting all responsibility onto the Scully members who died that night. In return, Franklin promised the best lawyers and a guaranteed bailout. "What if it goes wrong? I'll be doing 50 years at least. If it comes to that, we'll take care of your family, $5,000 a month, and when you're released, you'll get $250,000. After thinking it through, CJ trusted Franklin's loyalty and agreed. They immediately brought him to the police station. Soon after, the judge made the decision. Just as predicted, CJ walked free after paying bail. That night, as soon as he left jail, a woman approached CJ, saying Franklin had sent her to welcome him. Thinking Franklin was being thoughtful, he got into her car and followed her. Meanwhile, Franklin received a call from his lawyer asking if he sent someone to pick CJ up, because another party had already taken him. Franklin froze. Something was wrong. He sent his crew searching all night and eventually found CJ's dead body in front of his aunt's bar. Leon exploded with rage when he heard the news. He had promised to protect CJ, yet now his brother lay dead on the sidewalk. This had Scully's name written all over it. The only relief was that Leon no longer had to hide from the police. Leon was instructing the first group of men under him since his return when a woman suddenly appeared and pointed a gun at his head. "Oh shit, what can I do for you, gorgeous? $5,000 for your head, alive or dead doesn't matter, I need the money." At the last second, one of Leon's men circled behind her and forced her to drop the gun. Leon didn't want to hurt her and gently asked what was really going on. She revealed her parents had left home, and her two younger siblings hadn't eaten properly in days. Hearing that, Leon pointed the gun at her, just long enough to secretly tuck money into her hand. Franklin's uncle witnessed everything. He asked the woman who hired her. From her explanation, they learned Scully's crew had put out bounties, not just on Leon, but on all of Franklin's key members. Franklin felt like his head was splitting open. But trouble didn't stop there. When Franklin returned home, his mother delivered shocking news. Franklin's father had told a New York reporter everything about their operation. It began when a baby was abandoned at Franklin's father's homeless shelter. Hearing the child cry, he knew the parents couldn't be far. When he stepped outside, he found the baby's father slumped against a wall, already dead. In the man's hand was the newest, most popular product created by Franklin's crew. Wanting to prevent more black people from being destroyed by the new drug, Franklin's father exposed a series of crimes committed by the CIA. Franklin was furious. Not only had his father failed to help, he had just created another massive burden for him. "You're going to get all of us killed. You still don't understand, do you?" Franklin knew he had to stop the article from going public. If Teddy found out, everyone around him could be eliminated. But the next day, the story appeared in the Los Angeles paper. Even without names, everyone understood it meant the CIA was working with Franklin. As Franklin's sworn enemy, Miller immediately saw an opportunity. If the CIA turned on Franklin, would that give him a chance to rise to the top? Franklin, meanwhile, was terrified. Anyone connected to him could become a CIA target. His uncle suggested apologizing to avoid dragging everyone down, but Franklin snapped. "I'm the one in trouble here, not you, not Aunt Lou, and if I told you what would happen to all of you, nothing. Why? Because I'm the one taking the hits, so keep quiet and let me fix this, just like I always clean up everyone's mess." As the leader, Franklin had sacrificed far too much. Despite his young age, he thought far ahead of most people. Determined to fix the situation, he called the reporter who wrote the article and asked her to meet. Franklin warned her, either join them, or become collateral damage. If she thought she could outrun trained assassins, she could try publishing another story. But if she did, not only she, her whole family, would pay the price. Then he left. But the article wasn't his only problem. Scully's wife had issued bounties on all of them. What they feared the most wasn't the danger they could see, but the betrayal lurking in the shadows. The day of CJ's funeral arrived. Key members gathered. From a distance, Scully's wife watched. An opportunity like this was too perfect to waste. Franklin led the group, when suddenly a carload of gunmen burst in, opened fire, then sped away. Everyone survived except Lou, who was shot in the chest. As they waited at the hospital, Leon told Franklin he had seen Scully's wife, and it was likely she was behind CJ's death too. Shortly after, Franklin received a message from Teddy, asking to meet somewhere private. Teddy had seen the article and knew something was wrong. As Teddy scolded Franklin for letting things leak, he noticed blood on Franklin's collar and learned Lou had been shot. Teddy's tone immediately softened. Teddy told him he'd take care of the reporter. Franklin should keep doing his business, but absolutely no one could leak information again. Before leaving, Teddy warned him, from now on, trust no one, survive this period first, then think about the future. Franklin took the words to heart. After returning home, Franklin's new girlfriend tried to offer him a plan. If he wanted to end the war, he should make peace with Miller. Miller would convince his sister to remove the bounty, and Franklin only had to share his supply with him. Franklin stayed silent for a long time, thinking deeply. He told her he'd consider it, but Leon warned him that Miller couldn't be trusted, which reminded Franklin of Teddy's words. We can't trust him. Don't trust anyone. Franklin finally understood. He told Leon to stop his uncle from going after Scully. Then he told his girlfriend to answer Miller's call and say that if Miller could end the war, Franklin would share his supply. At the same time, Teddy sent men to sneak into the reporter's home. They didn't kill her, they injected something into her. This time, she'll wake up tomorrow. Next time, she won't. It seemed Teddy was still holding back. Meanwhile, Franklin's girlfriend called Miller as soon as she got home. He'll give you the supply. You just need to convince him you can make your sister back off. Then I want the rest of the money, and you must guarantee my brother's safety. After she hung up, she felt completely drained, but then a shadow appeared behind her. Franklin and his men. During their earlier conversation, Franklin had already noticed something strange. After overhearing her call with Miller, he was certain she was a planted spy, meant to steal his supply. Franklin hadn't decided what to do with her when Leon called. His uncle was heading out to avenge Lou, and no one could stop him. Franklin rushed out to stop him, using every argument he could. He warned that Miller was surely prepared, waiting for them to walk into a trap. They couldn't act out of anger. But his uncle had lost all reason. Franklin had no choice but to stand in front of the car. The two fought. When your wife and sister ask why I didn't stop you, I'll tell them I tried my best. Come on then, hit me. Hearing that, his uncle finally calmed down. Revenge didn't always require violence. If the enemy planted a spy, they would use her to send false information. Call him. Exposed, she had no choice but to call Miller and tell him Franklin agreed to transfer the supply, asking him to meet under the bridge. Not long after, Miller showed up. He hadn't been a gang boss for years just to be fooled. He already knew she betrayed him. You tried to set me up. No, you lying snake. Miller drew his gun to kill her, but she stabbed him first. Furious, he aimed his gun, but Franklin, waiting in ambush, shot him down. Hearing gunfire, Miller's men thought their boss fired first, but a second later, everything was already over. Knowing Miller's suspicious nature, Franklin predicted he wouldn't go to the meeting spot, so they ambushed his girlfriend's house instead. Thinking he was outsmarting everyone, Miller walked straight into the trap and paid the price. Because Leon didn't finish the job last time, causing heavy losses to the crew, Franklin wasn't going to repeat the same mistake. He raised his gun and gave Miller a bullet, sending him straight to the afterlife. As for his girlfriend who betrayed him, Franklin spared her life, but not her punishment. If she wanted her brother to live, she had to turn herself in and take full responsibility for everything. Think it over. Don't disappoint me. After that, Franklin walked away. Meanwhile, Scully's wife learned that her brother had been killed. Her loved ones were dying one by one because of Franklin. She smashed an ashtray over Scully's head. If he weren't so terrified of Franklin, they could have teamed up with Miller and wiped him out. If revenge was going to happen, she'd have to do it herself. She immediately called a hit squad, offering double the bounty to kill Franklin's crew, demanding they move fast. At the hospital, Franklin's aunt was finally stable. Franklin visited her and discussed how to deal with Scully. She suggested hiring assassins of their own. With enough money, anything was possible. Franklin suddenly realized she was right. That night, Wanda met with two female assassins and told them she knew Leon's location. In return, she wanted half the bounty. The assassins didn't question a thing. Wanda brought them to a remote area. As soon as they stopped, two more cars blocked them in. Franklin's crew stepped out. Seeing Wanda restrained, Franklin explained they only wanted to talk, and if the assassins didn't feel comfortable, they could walk away anytime. We mean no harm. We know this is about money, and the good news is, we have plenty of it. So how about working for us instead? We don't work for black folks. Then how about a partnership? Franklin said, you have skills, I have money. Working for me is a whole lot better than being out on the streets. I'll pay full time. He tossed them a stack of cash, their potential first payment. The assassins, impressed by Franklin's generosity, agreed immediately. Soon after Scully's wife received a call, the assassins claimed they found her daughter's killer. She grabbed her gun and rushed out. As soon as she saw Leon, she drew her gun, but the assassins trapped her. Realizing the setup, she shouted, "Whatever he paid you, I'll pay triple." Triple still isn't much. Knowing she wouldn't survive, she demanded, "You killed my daughter, now you want to kill me too." Leon apologized, saying everything spiraled out of control that day. He hoped for forgiveness and offered her a chance to walk away from the game. But she snapped, "Even if I become a ghost, I'll never forgive you." Hearing that, Franklin's uncle granted her wish. Today, they wanted Leon to understand, to end trouble, you must remove the root. If he hadn't spared anyone that night, none of this would have happened. At the same time, the reporter Teddy threatened stirred up trouble again. She brought Franklin's father to a radio station and told the public everything, what she had witnessed, and how she had been threatened. She even said that if the CIA didn't admit to her accusations and launch an internal investigation, she would reveal the agent's true identity to the public the very next day. Hearing that, Teddy flew into a rage. This was an open declaration of war. That night, while the reporter was driving home, she suddenly fell asleep at the wheel, something a veteran driver like her would never do. When she woke up, Teddy was standing right in front of her. Realizing the danger, she struggled desperately, but Teddy showed no mercy. Moments later, she was dead. Teddy took the evidence tape, staged the scene, and made it look like a drunk driving accident. The reporter had been repeatedly exposing Franklin's connection to the CIA. Teddy had warned her many times, but she wouldn't stop, so he was forced to silence her permanently. The next day, the news reported her death as a traffic accident, but anyone who knew the truth understood it was no coincidence. Franklin's father, the very man who fed her the information, felt overwhelming guilt. He immediately went to the radio station to finish what she started. A media storm erupted across Los Angeles. Franklin panicked. He had risked everything to protect his family, yet his own father was now the one trying to destroy him. Teddy called and demanded Franklin shut everything down immediately, or face consequences. Franklin rushed to his father's homeless shelter and told the assistant to call him back. The assistant hesitated and said, "If your father wants to contact you, he will. Didn't he ever tell you who funds this place? The only reason you can do charity here is because of me. Every dollar comes from your drug business." Franklin snapped, "Tell me where he is." When the assistant refused, Franklin ordered the shelter to be shut down immediately. "Everyone get out, now." Within minutes, the shelter was emptied. Franklin told the assistant the place would only reopen when his father came to him. Teddy called again, demanding Franklin stop his father before his identity leaked, or everything would collapse. "If that happens, you and your entire family will pay for it, and I hate being threatened." Meanwhile, Franklin's father knew what crossing the CIA meant, so he armed himself. Not long after, Franklin came home. His father told him, "Call Teddy, tell him you've dealt with me." "Why would I do that?" Franklin asked. "Because I'm going to end all of this." Franklin was exhausted. Why was his own father determined to fight him? Killing Teddy wouldn't stop the CIA. They'd never let them walk away. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. It was Scully. Both father and son scrambled to hide. Scully, broken after losing his wife and daughter, stormed into Franklin's house with a gun. As his footsteps approached, Franklin's father stepped out and fired. Franklin rushed in and backed him up. Attacked from both sides, Scully was shot and forced to withdraw. Unfortunately, Franklin's father was also hit in the shoulder. Franklin urged him to go to the hospital immediately. Yet even in that moment, his father insisted he call Teddy. Franklin refused, telling him to leave Los Angeles. He would give him enough money to start over. But before he could finish, his father knocked him unconscious. Why would a father raise his hand against his own son? Out of anger, desperation, or something darker? When Franklin woke up, only his mother was beside him. His radio was gone, taken by his father. Instantly sensing danger, he called Teddy. As he feared, his father had gone to meet Teddy. Franklin warned, "If you want to keep working with me, do not touch my father." But Teddy answered, "Your father made his own choices, but out of respect for you, I'll tell you where we're meeting." Teddy revealed the meeting spot, the same place where they'd done their first deal after Franklin got shot. If Franklin wanted to save his father, he'd better hurry. Franklin's father had contacted the radio station himself, wanting to expose the CIA so that no more black lives would be destroyed by crack. Teddy had held back only because of Franklin, but since the father came straight to him, he would no longer hesitate. When they met, Franklin's father pointed a gun directly at Teddy. "I thought you just wanted to talk," I do, if you can convince me. Is this about the reporter? No, I'm here to tell you it's over. You will not use my son to fund your war anymore. Leave us alone so we can live in peace. Teddy disagreed. He said Franklin might be young, but he was the biggest crack dealer in Los Angeles. If he wanted out, he could come to Teddy himself. Both men stood there pointing guns, neither willing to fire. Then Franklin arrived. Teddy said, "Your father is the one who exposed us. I want you to kill the traitor." Franklin raised his gun, but couldn't pull the trigger. Teddy muttered, "Looks like I'll have to do it myself." Franklin rushed forward. "Wait, if you kill him, you'll have to kill all of us. Can't you show me at least that much respect?" Franklin's mother stepped between them, pleading with Teddy. She promised to take her husband far away and never return. Teddy considered it. Killing Franklin's father wouldn't fix the situation, so he decided to grant Franklin this one mercy. Thanks to Franklin's mother, the deadly standoff ended peacefully. Franklin then sent his parents away to start a new life. Every farewell hurts, and who knew when they would meet again. Teddy, now compromised, was punished by the CIA and forced to leave Los Angeles for a while to clean up the fallout. When Franklin returned to the base, his aunt had finally been discharged, but his uncle announced he wanted to break away. Franklin's partnership with the CIA was too dangerous. No matter how much Franklin tried to persuade them, they refused to stay. Franklin's closest brother, Leon, also decided to walk away from him. It hit Franklin harder than anyone realized. He had taken every hit for them, shielded them from everything, yet in the end they still chose to leave. But maybe that was for the best. With no one left to hold him back, he could finally focus solely on building his empire. This young black man had become powerful enough to cover the sky with one hand in Los Angeles. Barely in his 20s, he possessed a fortune most people couldn't earn in 20 lifetimes. With ambition and boldness, he built his own crack empire from the ground up, operating across both legitimate markets and the underworld. His girlfriend, Tanis, managed his real estate ventures, while Franklin continued to handle the drug side. Together, they made a fortune. Under Franklin's leadership, the underground business grew more stable than ever. But where there are people, there are conflicts. One day, one of Franklin's buyers, Rob, threw a party. Out of nowhere, trouble broke out. Rob's friend got into an argument with a young man and, believing he had home field advantage, pulled a gun to intimidate him. Rob tried to stop him, not wanting things to escalate, but the young man kept mocking them. Furious, Rob's friend snapped and pulled the trigger. Chaos erupted as everyone ran for their lives. This time, trouble was huge, because the victim was white. The next day, Los Angeles exploded with outrage. Every news outlet covered the incident. Franklin said nothing, but he knew this would hit his business hard. And he was right. Police not only hunted for the shooter, they also raided dozens of crack houses across the city. They would never tolerate a white victim. Meanwhile, Franklin and Peaches went to Rob's place. Rob, still partying, had no idea how serious things had become. To keep him safe, Franklin brought him to a secure hideout and told him to stay put. Franklin then asked how much the friend knew about the CIA deal. Rob insisted he knew nothing. He would never reveal something like that. Franklin believed him. Before leaving, Franklin warned Rob that if the friend contacted him, he had to inform Franklin immediately, and his tone left no room for doubt. Back at the base, Leon and Franklin's uncle were also suffering losses as police raids destroyed their operations. They were furious. Countless black people had died without repercussions, but the death of one white man sent the entire LAPD into a frenzy. Still, they were powerless to stop it. The next day, Rob got a message from the friend. Wanting no mistakes, Franklin brought Peaches and Rob to the meeting point. After a 7-hour drive, they finally found him, terrified and on the run. Seeing Peaches armed, the man panicked and grabbed a gun. Franklin calmly explained that Peaches was his security. Only when Peaches holstered his weapon did the man relax and invite them inside. As he packed his belongings, he asked Franklin where he could hide. "I was thinking, maybe that CIA guy you work with could help me get a fake passport." The moment Franklin heard that, his expression changed, cold and deadly. On Franklin's signal, Rob stepped forward and fired. "Kill him." Facing his close friend, Rob simply couldn't pull the trigger. But the chaos they were in now wasn't anyone else's fault. He hadn't kept his mouth shut, and it put his boy's life in danger. Seeing the unwavering look in Franklin's eyes, Rob realized there was no room left for discussion. With no choice, he stepped forward and sent his friend off for good. The three of them then drove out to a desolate area, found a spot, and started digging. As they worked, a ruthless thought crossed Franklin's mind. He pointed toward a shooting star streaking across the sky. "Damn, I can see it. Right. Where? Over there. You see it, right behind that spot." In Franklin's world, anyone who jeopardized his business, even if they were family, had only one fate. Now, the only thing he could rely on was his partnership with the CIA. Ever since Teddy's disappearance, he had vanished without a trace, but soon after, the CIA sent another operative to replace him, a man named Grady. Wanting to increase his profits, Franklin negotiated with Grady. He said he could raise his weekly purchase to 300 kilos of product, but in exchange, he wanted the price cut from $10,000 per kilo to $9,000. Grady quickly calculated that he'd be losing over $15 million a year. Even though Franklin's volume was tempting, he needed approval from above. A few days later, they met again at Franklin's hangar. Grady said the lower price could work, but he had one condition. He glanced toward Franklin's plane. "You want my plane? That's right. Just kidding. I just want you to take me for a ride." Franklin didn't expect him to agree so easily. He immediately took Grady up for a flight, but the excitement didn't last because the next person who appeared hit him like a bucket of cold water. That night, when Grady returned to his mansion, he found an uninvited guest waiting inside, Teddy. Turns out, ever since Grady took over, he had been skimming large amounts of money. The product shipments went up, but the funds sent to Congress went down. The CIA had no choice but to call Teddy back. Teddy was furious about the embezzlement. He told Grady it wasn't too late to stop. No matter how much he stole, Teddy could help him disappear safely, but by tomorrow morning, he had better be gone. The next morning, Grady locked every door in his house. He wasn't the type to scare easily, but after taking one sip of water to calm himself, he collapsed instantly. He tried crawling toward the exit, but the silhouette at the end of the hallway made him lose all hope. Teddy had made his move. No one expected Teddy's methods to be this ruthless. "I want you to understand, you and I have no personal feud, but you failed your duty as an operative. Your greed could get a lot of people killed." Cut to Franklin, unaware of everything. As soon as he opened his door, he found Teddy, missing for so long, suddenly standing there. Teddy told him that from this day forward, they were working together again. As for Grady, Franklin would never see him again. Franklin wasn't surprised at all. Before they continued, he asked Teddy whether the price deal he made with Grady still counted. $9,000 a kilo. I hope you'll honor that price while working with me. Let's keep it at 10. Franklin froze. He had fought so hard to bring that price down, only for everything to be wiped out the moment Teddy returned. Today was supposed to be Franklin and Teddy's first day resuming business together, but before they could even exchange a few words, a car came speeding toward them. The passenger door flew open and a gunman opened fire on Franklin's crew. Their driver was hit and killed instantly. Everyone dove behind the car. Teddy, a CIA operative with deadly aim, took one shot and hit the attacking driver, but the enemies immediately redirected their fire, hitting Teddy in the shoulder. Driven by pure survival instinct, Teddy crawled into one of the cars and sped away under a rain of bullets. Franklin's crew was abandoned. Franklin told Gustavo to get in the car, but the moment he did, he was shot too. Franklin quickly jumped into the driver's seat and sped off. But their bad luck didn't stop. The engine had been hit, and after only a few meters, the car died. They had no choice but to get out and walk down the street carrying millions in cash. Panic set in. They had no idea who was after them, and carrying that much money made every stranger look like a threat. They reached a payphone, and Franklin called his uncle for help, but before the man could even understand what was happening, gunshots rang out on his end of the line. Franklin's uncle had also been ambushed. At that moment, several thugs approached Franklin from behind. With no other choice, Franklin hung up the phone and walked away with Gustavo, pretending nothing was wrong. But the men kept following them, insisting on checking the bag. Forced into a corner, Franklin pulled out his gun. Most of the thugs fled instantly, except for one stubborn idiot. As more and more gang members gathered behind them, both men abandoned all dignity and ran for their lives. After a long chase, they made it into an underground basement and finally lost their pursuers. Only then did Franklin realize that his entire operation was being targeted. They sat in that basement for half a day. Eventually, they left the money hidden there and only moved on when they believed it was safe. To check on Franklin's uncle, they broke into a random house hoping to use a phone, but the moment they walked in, both jumped in fear. "Holy shit, scared the hell out of me." Franklin barely had time to laugh it off before his face froze. While he was busy searching for a phone, he didn't notice the old man standing behind him. The man shot each of them with tranquilizer darts, and they collapsed immediately. When they woke up, they realized they were trapped inside a large cage. Franklin looked to the side, and nearly fainted again. "Bro, there's a tiger." "What, a tiger, man, right there." They freaked out. There was just a cage separating them from a full-grown tiger. Clearly, this homeowner was a lunatic, but the real question now was, how the hell did they escape? Help, anybody? Oh shit, it's literally just the tiger. Hearing the shouting, the old man returned. Franklin desperately tried to explain, they meant no harm, they just needed a phone, and he could pay him generously. Guess I'll prep you some snacks today. Do you hear me? I have money, lots of it, you can have it all, just open the cage. Thought I caught a couple thieves, but that's fine, might make for an interesting treat. Franklin was stunned, the old man didn't care about money at all, he simply wanted Franklin to be the tiger's dinner. After ranting, the old man tried to remove the metal divider separating the cages, but no matter how hard he shook it, it wouldn't come loose. Only then did he notice a belt tied tightly around the top bar. Turns out Gustavo had plenty of experience. After waking up, he immediately spotted the cage's weak point and tied it shut with his belt as a precaution. That belt ended up saving both their lives. The old man then dragged out a ladder, preparing to climb up and undo the divider. Gustavo waited for the perfect moment and kicked the cage hard. The old man lost his balance, one leg slipping straight into the tiger's cage. That was it, the tiger's dinner had just delivered itself. When they spotted the keys on the ground, Franklin tried to reach for them but couldn't. Gustavo came up with a plan. He would lift the divider just enough for Franklin to squeeze into the other cage and grab the keys. Franklin blinked. Why me? Gustavo replied casually, because you're black, the tiger can't see you. Franklin wanted to argue, but he had to admit Gustavo had a point. Hurry, Franklin. The tiger was still busy devouring its prey. Franklin snatched the keys, and both escaped just in time. As soon as they reached the street, they ran into the same gangsters from earlier, the ones who had tried to steal their bag. Franklin panicked and lied, saying the money had been stolen. The thugs didn't buy it and dragged both men back to their base, beating them relentlessly for answers, but Franklin and Gustavo refused to talk, because once the gang got the money, both of them would be dead men. Franklin quickly improvised, fine, I'll tell you, but if you want me to lead you to it, you have to promise to let us go. Fine, they agreed. Franklin continued, it's where you caught us, in the basement, inside that cage, but we don't remember which floor, we'll take you there. The gangsters were no fools, they let Franklin go but kept Gustavo as insurance. Franklin led them back to the old man's house and pointed toward the basement. Seeing the empty cage, the gang grew uneasy. The leader spotted the old man's corpse and instantly realized they'd been tricked. He pulled his gun on Franklin, but it was already too late. The tiger lunged out of nowhere and tore the thugs apart. Why didn't it attack Franklin? Maybe the joke was true, the tiger literally couldn't see him. Franklin escaped, stole the gang's car, and immediately called his uncle and Leon to rescue Gustavo. At the gang's base, the thugs thought their crew had returned. The moment they opened the door, Franklin's team stormed in, overpowered them, and rescued Gustavo. Back at their territory, Franklin learned everyone had been attacked earlier that day. Who could know their movements so clearly? Franklin suddenly remembered Peaches hadn't shown up today. To confirm his suspicion, Franklin rushed to his stash spot, only to find every dollar gone. Only 2 people knew about that stash, Franklin and Peaches. This time, betrayal came from right inside his inner circle. It turned out that not long ago, Peaches had witnessed Franklin kill one of his own men with his own eyes. That shattered whatever loyalty he had left. If Franklin could kill someone that close to him, then Peaches, just a bodyguard, meant nothing, and that was why everything spiraled out of control. After some digging, they learned Peaches had fled Los Angeles, and the man working with him to launch a full-scale attack on Franklin was Kane. Franklin and Leon exchanged looks. They instantly understood what was going on. They immediately went to see Kane, who had just gotten out of prison. They asked if he was behind the attacks. Kane didn't dodge the question, he admitted everything. What startled Franklin was that he didn't get angry. Instead, he simply asked why Kane never came to see him after getting out. Turns out Kane was Kevin's older brother. After hearing Franklin killed Kevin, he teamed up with Peaches for revenge. Facing Kevin's brother, Franklin had no answer. Kane made it clear he wouldn't stop until he got vengeance. After returning home, Franklin told his uncle and aunt. His uncle said they needed to strike back hard. We killed his brother, we didn't protect his family, and now we want to kill him too. Leon suggested another approach, let him convince Kane to join their operation. Knowing he was partly at fault, Franklin reluctantly agreed. But internal conflict wasn't Franklin's only problem, the CIA pressure was getting worse. Cut to Teddy meeting Franklin in a parking lot, furious about the security breach. He told Franklin the rules would change. From now on, I decide everything, I'll tell you the time and place only minutes before the deal. Second, you come alone, no one else. Once close partners, they now distrusted each other, but Franklin knew he was partly to blame, so he accepted. Later, Leon informed him that Kane agreed to work with them, but Franklin's aunt was furious. She had grown increasingly dissatisfied with his decisions. Without telling Franklin, she went straight to Teddy and asked to buy product directly from him. Teddy, who had been frustrated with Franklin lately, agreed. When Franklin's uncle found out, he was shocked. He said this was basically declaring war on Franklin, and he refused to go against his own nephew. His aunt reassured him and said after their wedding she would tell Franklin everything, believing he would understand and give them his blessing. Soon, the wedding day arrived. For the first time in a long while, Franklin felt that sense of family again. His eyes quietly watered. After the ceremony, Franklin apologized for everything he'd put them through, but his aunt told him it was already too late. Everything traced back to the attack on their crew. Leon brought Kane in, and Franklin's aunt absolutely hated the idea. So she secretly met LAPD officer Buckley, paid him $150,000, and asked him to take out Kane when the time was right. That day, Buckley's team rolled into Kane's territory fully armed and opened fire on his crew. In the end, Kane was shot and killed. Buckley thought earning that $150,000 would be easy, but then he got the news one of his own officers had died in the raid. That turned the whole situation into a disaster. The higher-ups were furious. If someone died during an unreported operation, Buckley would have to take all the blame. He was suspended for investigation and ordered to take a urine test, but since he'd been using crack for a long time, he knew he would fail, so he snapped, cursed out his superiors, and walked out of the station. That night, Buckley went to see Franklin's aunt, demanding the rest of his payment, but she refused. Kane wasn't dead, he was badly injured, but still alive. Seeing Buckley getting unstable, she offered him a job instead, double whatever he used to earn, and just like that, she bought his loyalty. The next day, Leon came to Franklin. He knew the hit on Kane had something to do with Franklin's aunt and asked Franklin to handle it. "What do you want me to do? Make noise, shut her club down, or go to war with your aunt and uncle?" Franklin said he had bigger problems and told Leon to let it go. Leon was frustrated. He worked hard to bring Kane in, yet now nobody seemed to care what happened to him. Meanwhile, Teddy carried out his first deal directly with Franklin's aunt. They openly traded behind Franklin's back, as if he no longer mattered. Gustavo was furious. If Franklin found out, it would cause a war, and nobody would win, but Teddy believed Franklin would never harm his own family. This time, Teddy was wrong. That night, Franklin personally visited his aunt, saying he understood why she targeted Kane since Kane had attacked them first. He just wanted to fix the family tension, but what she said next hit him like lightning. "Before we can reconcile, there's something you need to know. I contacted Teddy, and he's agreed to let me take product directly from him." Franklin couldn't accept it. 90% of his product moved through his aunt. If she broke off and worked alone, it would destroy his entire operation. She said she had no other choice. That was when Franklin finally understood. He couldn't trust anyone, not even family. In anger, he made his decision. "If you want to be in charge, I'll let you have it." Franklin then met Teddy at a diner and said he wanted out. Teddy could work with his aunt instead, but Franklin didn't realize he was already in too deep. That choice would become the biggest mistake of his life. As he prepared to step back, he suddenly discovered over $70 million missing from his accounts. This wasn't legal seizure, otherwise he'd already be in handcuffs. Only one man had the power to do it, Teddy. This was Teddy's punishment for trying to walk away. "What are you gonna do? You need to call Teddy back, work with him again, and if he doesn't agree, then kidnap him, hurt him until he does." But Franklin's family immediately shut that plan down. His girlfriend warned him that if he went after Teddy, the CIA would take revenge on all of them. With no other options left, Franklin went to look for Drexler, the only person who knew about his offshore accounts in Panama. If anyone could explain what happened to the money, it was Drexler. But when Franklin arrived at Drexler's safe house, the place was nothing but ruins. At that point, the only option he could think of was returning to Teddy. When they finally got in touch, Teddy instantly understood what Franklin wanted. Teddy said he could come back to work, but only if he agreed to get his supply through his aunt. Franklin didn't bother beating around the bush. He demanded Teddy return his money, but Teddy played dumb. Realizing Teddy had no intention of giving it back, Franklin snapped and warned him. "If I don't get my money back in 24 hours, I swear I'll spend every bit of time I have, and every resource I've got, to make sure you, and everyone you know, never rest again. You'd better be careful. You think losing some money is the end of it? Just wait." That moment was probably when Franklin's fate truly shifted. When he got home, he called Gustavo again and again before he finally answered. Franklin explained Teddy had stolen every dollar he had and begged Gustavo for Teddy's location, but Gustavo told him to walk away. He's got the CIA behind him. He always wins. You can't beat him, Franklin. After everything he's done, you still forgive him. I need to protect my family. Good luck, Franklin. After the call ended, Franklin finally understood what it felt like to be cornered. His only remaining hope was his aunt. That night, they met on a rooftop. Franklin asked her to help arrange a meeting with Teddy, but she refused without hesitation. She knew exactly what Teddy had done to Franklin, but still wouldn't get involved. Franklin couldn't hold back anymore. If she hadn't betrayed him, none of this would have happened. But she reminded him, he was the one who quit the business. She wouldn't risk her operation for him. Franklin snapped and pulled a gun on her. You gonna shoot your own aunt? If killing you gets my money back, I'd do it 10 times over. Call Teddy, now. Franklin didn't expect his aunt to be ready for him. At that moment, whatever family bond they had left shattered. She didn't kill him though, only because of his uncle. If I ever see you again, I'll kill you. Franklin once had the power to bend Los Angeles to his will, but in a single night he lost everything: money, status, family, and friends. At just 20-something, he tasted the full brutality of the world. Betrayed by the people he trusted most, the seed of vengeance began to grow in him. When he got home, he said goodbye to his pregnant girlfriend. He reminded her of his promise. He would give her the life she deserved. She just needed to stay home and rest. After Franklin walked out the door, she immediately dialed a mysterious number. Hello, it's me. Yes, it's been a while. I'm still in Los Angeles. I'm in some trouble. I need your help. At the same time, Franklin went to the 2 female assassins he had hired before. He couldn't wait any longer. He needed revenge now. Cut to the 2 female assassins pretending to be drunk as they staggered toward Aunt Louie's warehouse. When the guards let their guard down, the women pull their guns and take them out instantly. From this moment on, Franklin's wheel of fate begins to turn. Franklin leads them inside. The moment the door opens, they see mountains of coke and cash stacked to the ceiling. No time for shock. The 2 assassins quickly help Franklin stuff everything into bags. Then Franklin heads to her second stash house. Using his identity as her nephew, he earns the guards' trust and cleans out that warehouse too. At the same time, both aunt and uncle receive word of what's happening. Franklin then rushes to the hospital to find Kane, who's been left paralyzed by Buckley's bullets. This happened because of my aunt. When Franklin returns home, his mother confronts him. Did you rob their warehouses? Franklin stays silent, which is answer enough. She then asks how he plans to answer to his aunt and uncle. The question sends Franklin into a rage. Why'd I owe them anything? I did everything. I brought them in. I gave them the highest cut. And how did they repay me? I sacrificed everything, only to be stabbed in the back. But this is between me and them. None of this is your fault, Mom. What Franklin doesn't realize is that his mother is no longer the simple, peaceful woman he remembers. She says she can help him capture Teddy and let Franklin handle the rest. He thinks she's comforting him until she explains further. Back when I lived in Cuba, I had a few friends. What kind of friends? KGB, the National Security Committee. Franklin is stunned, and she's clearly not joking. She really had her own network in Cuba. Then help me kill them all. All right, then let's get to work. After 3 brutal years, Franklin went from a small time dealer to the most powerful kingpin in Los Angeles. But at the peak of his empire, the person he trusted most, his aunt, betrayed him, and Teddy wiped out every dollar he had spent years building. Enraged, Franklin robbed all of Louie's stash houses. He swore every traitor would pay, but first, he needed to sell everything he stole so he could raise enough money for one final war with Teddy. Franklin went back to his old buyers. Ever since he was pushed out, they had switched to Louie, but with the right pitch, Franklin believed he could win them back. He offered $10,000 per kilo and promised a 2% profit share for anyone buying 100 kilos or more. With that deal, Franklin reopened his distribution network almost instantly. Franklin then went to a man rumored to have eyes and ears everywhere. He offered a bounty, $250,000 for Peaches, dead or alive, and whoever recovered the stolen $5 million would receive 30%. He was betting everything he had left. But his biggest target was still Teddy, the man who wiped him out. Unable to locate him, Franklin asked the man to investigate Teddy's family. Dig deeper for me, find his weaknesses. Meanwhile, Jerome and Louie calculated the damage. Franklin had taken almost everything, product and cash, leaving them unable to operate. With no other choice, Louie went to Teddy, asking him to front her a shipment. Teddy asked her, What happened? We were robbed. By who? Franklin. Someone drained all his accounts. He's sinking fast. And clearly, we're his lifeline. Louis had no idea the person who drained Franklin's accounts was Teddy. After returning home, Jerome contacted their buyers, only to learn they had switched to a cheaper supplier. That's when he realized Franklin had stolen both their product and their clients. Furious, he called Franklin. Meet me. So now you want to blame everything on us. Your wife betrayed me. She went behind my back and bought directly from my supplier. I'm just taking back what's mine. Is that wrong? Franklin, if you don't return what you stole, you know exactly what's coming, boy. Come find me then. I'll go all the way with both of you. Jerome had no comeback. Louis had been the one to betray Franklin first, but when she mentioned Franklin once pointed a gun at her, his anger reignited, and he decided it was time for an all-out war. That night, Franklin sent the 2 female assassins to handle a sale. Everything went smoothly, until a police car suddenly blocked their way. They weren't carrying product, just cash, so they assumed it would be fine. Instead, the cops insisted they step out. The moment they did, Jerome appeared. The police were his hires. He interrogated the women about the stash Franklin stole. We don't know. He hid everything in a new place that none of us know about. When they refused to talk, Jerome punched one of them. The situation spiraled instantly. No matter how hard he hit, she wouldn't break.
Telling the truth. Telling the truth.
With a crowd forming, Jerome had no choice but to leave. Before walking off, he warned. Tell my nephew I did this, and I won't stop till I get my product back. Franklin rushed to the hospital, only to learn the woman didn't survive. He decided he would confront Jerome directly. His mother arrived just in time to stop him. With her son on one side and her brother on the other, she couldn't bear to watch her family tear itself apart. You think fighting your uncle will fix anything? No one can get in my way. This is exactly what Teddy wants, for us to destroy each other so he can profit. She told Franklin to wait. She would handle Jerome and bring back a solution. She visited Jerome, cooked all his childhood favorite dishes, and after a few drinks told him, You and Franklin are the last 2 men of this family. Why must you fight? Thanks to her, they agreed to meet at a diner, Franklin said. Yes, I took your product, but last night you stole my money and killed my people, so we're even. But Jerome refused to let it go. He raised Franklin like a son, yet Franklin pointed a gun at Louis, something he couldn't forgive. Franklin snapped. Everything the family had, the money, the empire, he earned it. They stood behind him, ate off his work, yet once the business stabilized, Louis betrayed him. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? Touch me again, see what happens. Man, what if I do? Go on, what do you think I can do? Do it, kill me, end everything right now. What was supposed to be a reconciliation ended in disaster. Franklin's heart went cold. They were the ones who betrayed him, yet somehow he became the villain. If they weren't blood, Franklin would have ended them long ago. He blamed no one but himself. He trusted the wrong people. Everything happening now was the consequence of his own choices. Meanwhile, Leon finally returned after being gone for a long time. He had no idea chaos had erupted while he was away. Everywhere he looked, people were armed as if war was about to break out. Leon stared at Franklin in confusion. It turned out that while Leon was gone, Franklin and his aunt and uncle had become enemies. After their failed attempt to reconcile, things only escalated. First, Louis and Jerome were attacked during their honeymoon. Then they retaliated by hitting Franklin's real estate office. Franklin struck back by attacking Louis' club. The war escalated quickly. Los Angeles split into 2 factions, one backing Jerome and Louis, and the other standing with Franklin. After learning the full situation, Leon decided to act as a mediator, hoping to bring peace back. He returned to his old turf, only to find it taken over by his former subordinate, Dion. Despite being the true leader, Leon received no respect. As long as you don't stick your nose where it doesn't belong, we'll be fine. Leon kept that insult in mind. Then he brought African gifts to Jerome's place, saying they were wedding presents from him and Wanda. Jerome cut straight to it. Say what you came to say. I don't know if I should say it. Then don't say anything at all, kid. Seeing Jerome unwilling to listen, and realizing he was powerless, Leon went to Franklin. The moment he stepped inside Franklin's house, he was stunned, never imagining Jerome could go this far against his own nephew. The 2 longtime brothers talked. They both knew the life they chose would eventually lead to tragedy, but they never imagined it would be this soon, or that the people dragging them down would be their own family. Leon urged Franklin to leave everything behind and go to Africa with him. I don't have a way out anymore, brother. I know you're trying to figure things out, but listen. If you stay here and get involved in this war, you'll have to pick a side. Otherwise, take your wife and get out of LA now, while you still can." Hearing that, Leon realized how naive he'd been. If he wanted people to listen, he needed to prove he was still a force to be reckoned with. That night, Leon confronted Dion, provoking him by ordering him to fix the light outside, as if he were still his subordinate. Naturally, Dion refused to back down. The next day, Leon hired workers to fix every streetlight in the area. Just as he expected, Dion got angry and came at night to shoot out all the lights. Leon finally had his moment. The two charged at each other while a large crowd watched. No one dared intervene. This was the fight between the old leader and the new one. Leon, smaller in size, was pinned down and beaten repeatedly. Dion mocked him, thinking victory was his, until Leon kicked him straight in the groin, turning the tide instantly. Leon followed up with another blow, sending Dion crashing to the ground. With such weak skills, how could he ever replace Leon? "This is my turf." With one fight, Leon reclaimed his throne. All his former soldiers returned to him. Leon was once again the leader of the entire territory. Who else wants a turn? Didn't you all want to be boss? Well, here's your chance. Faced with the longtime Og himself, no one dared disrespect Leon. He had always been known for being ruthless. Just like that, Leon reclaimed his entire operation. From now on, whether he chose a side or stayed neutral, he had enough power to stand on his own. Meanwhile, Franklin was preparing to return to the game. He visited Kane, who had just recovered from Buckley's attack, hoping to use Kane's influence to rebuild his empire. The criminal underworld of Los Angeles was on the verge of a massive bloodbath. Kane agreed immediately. Franklin used to be a top boss. He knew the most important thing now was cash flow, so he asked to inspect the production process, because this operation determined the strength of the entire crew. When he entered the control room, Franklin immediately understood the problem. The place was a mess. Everyone was partying instead of working. He shut off the music, kicked out the crowd, and laid down new rules. From now on, this place runs 24 hours a day. You can switch shifts, but production never stops. But the crew ignored him completely. Their supervisor even mouthed off, saying Franklin had no authority here. Franklin scoffed, "Someone really dares challenge me." He grabbed the man by the head and slammed him toward the stove. Franklin wasn't the king he used to be, but he wasn't someone these kids could disrespect. Furious, he warned them. "You want to make real money? Then work like it. If you can't do that, get the hell out." The crew panicked at Franklin's brutality and ran out in fear. Their supervisor immediately went to Kane for help. But Kane shut him down, saying that from now on Franklin made the rules. He admitted he'd spoiled them for too long. Either they followed Franklin's system, or they were out. He wasn't feeding deadweight anymore. The supervisor grew angrier and angrier. Eventually he went to Jerome and revealed where Franklin and Kane were hiding. And the next morning, "Who are those guys? How would I know?" The moment Franklin saw them, he understood. It was the man he disciplined the day before. Franklin finally realized, if you want to eliminate a threat, you eliminate it completely. Franklin and Kane escaped through the back door and were picked up by loyal soldiers. Once they reached a safe house, Franklin told Kane to stay alert. He had something important to take care of. The investigator Franklin hired had finally found something. Franklin flew to Kansas to confront an old man, Teddy's father. Then he called Teddy, starting a chilling, friendly conversation. "I'm in beautiful Kansas right now. Got anything fun for me to do? Or should I take your dad out for dinner?" "Of course, I need my money back first." Teddy answered coldly. "And if I don't pay, you gonna kill him?" "That doesn't scare me. The money you're talking about is still in the same account." Seeing Teddy still pretending, Franklin pressed a knife to his father's throat. Teddy panicked. "What the hell are you doing? You want to talk to him? Better use this chance, Teddy." Dad, can you hear me?" "No, you called too late. Send my money back. If not, your daughter is next. Then everyone you care about, blood will flow, just like your father's." Franklin then lit a match and burned away all the evidence. Even if his enemy was CIA, anyone who stole from him had to pay the same price. Back home, Franklin called his mother and Leon in, telling them they needed to stay together around the clock because Teddy might come for revenge. But Teddy didn't even have the chance. Disaster struck the Saint family first. Aunt Louie handed her gun to security and prepared to get on her horse, unaware that danger was right behind her. Moments later, gunshots rang out. The terrified horse bucked and threw Louie to the ground. She instinctively reached for her gun, only to remember she'd handed it off. As she got up, Kane's men surrounded her. One look at them and she knew escape was impossible. Cut to Louie being dragged into an abandoned warehouse. Kane glared at the woman who had once almost crippled him, but knowing she was Franklin's family, he called Franklin, giving him a chance to decide her fate. When Franklin arrived, he told Kane to clear the room. No matter what happened today, Louis was not walking out alive. Franklin told Louis to admit her betrayal, promising her a quick death if she did. "You're the reason my life became hell." Even now, she refused to repent. Franklin turned to leave. She quickly called out, claiming she could help him find Teddy, but Franklin was already done with her. Franklin had already secured Gustavo. After Teddy's father was attacked, Teddy became unstable. Gustavo secretly evacuated his family and agreed to help Franklin in exchange for a large payout. Louis thought she was a valuable bargaining chip. In Franklin's eyes, she was worth nothing now. On the way back, Franklin hesitated. Despite her betrayal, Louis was still family. Unable to kill her himself, he called Jerome, who rushed to the warehouse immediately. "What the hell is this? Where is she? If you rush in now, you're walking straight into a death trap." Franklin explained that even with the temporary alliance, Kane would never spare Louis. His goal was to calm Jerome down first, then figure out a way to rescue her. At this point, even I couldn't understand Franklin anymore. Maybe he truly never wanted to hurt his own family. Franklin drove back to the warehouse. The guards were shocked. "Thought you left." "I did, now I'm back. Let me inside." In a deserted spot, Franklin popped open the trunk and freed Jerome. Before the guard could react, Franklin killed him instantly. He then signaled Leon and his men to move in. Kane's crew didn't expect Franklin to return, but seconds later. After a brutal fight, all the guards outside were dead. Jerome, terrified for Louis, grabbed a gun, busted inside, shot a henchman, and kicked down the door. Seeing Kane holding Louis hostage, Jerome froze. Kane said, "I'm sparing you today. When I walk out that door, she's yours." Then Kane shoved her toward him. Louis ran to the side, and when the gunfire stopped, she rushed over, only to see both men shot in fatal spots, dead on the spot. When Franklin's crew entered and saw Jerome lifeless on the floor, Franklin froze. After everything, after all the fighting, they were still family. In that moment, Franklin truly regretted ever entering this world. Maybe then his uncle wouldn't have died like this. Watching this, it's infuriating. Those who deserve to die live on, while the innocent fall. It feels like a warning that Franklin won't end well either. At Jerome's massive gang funeral, Franklin and Louis reconciled at last, but the cost was Jerome's life. Louis decided to help Franklin lure Teddy out and finish everything once and for all. With her help, Franklin's odds improved. He later brought Gustavo to Louis's house to plan the operation. That night, Louis called Teddy, saying she could help him capture Franklin so he could avenge his father, on the condition that Teddy reduce her price by $1,000 per kilo. Teddy immediately agreed. 6 o'clock. "Come alone. I need someone to assist me. One person, max. More than that means you're selling me out." Teddy had no idea that Louis was sitting right beside Franklin, helping plan his downfall. And in this plan, Gustavo was the key piece. If anything happened to him, Franklin was finished. They had no choice but to take the risk. The next day, Franklin told his pregnant girlfriend, if he didn't return, she must take his mother and leave LA forever. Then he went to the meeting spot with Louis and told her to beat him as brutally as needed. Louis didn't hold back. She beat Franklin to the ground. Only then would Teddy believe the setup. Once everything was in place, they moved out. Gustavo got the signal and called Franklin, saying all was well, but he didn't know he'd been tracked by the DEA. The moment he hung up, he was arrested. Franklin, unaware of Gustavo's arrest, moved according to plan. Louis called Teddy, saying Franklin was captured. Teddy, being cautious, told her to leave Franklin at the meeting spot. He'd arrive later. This ruined their setup, but Franklin insisted they proceed. He believed as long as Gustavo showed up, he'd be fine. He had no idea Gustavo was already gone. Louis's men tied Franklin up and dumped him at the meeting point, but midnight came, and no Teddy. Unease crept in. Eventually, a car approached. The moment Franklin saw who stepped out, Gustavo wasn't with Teddy. His stomach dropped. Things had gone very wrong. Franklin scanned the area, no allies. He panicked, begging Teddy for mercy, claiming he knew countless secrets, but Teddy wasn't listening. Franklin was taken to an abandoned warehouse, hung from the ceiling like an animal. Teddy prepared his tools, pulling out a syringe. Desperate to live, Franklin begged, "If you spare me, I'll disappear forever. If you struggle, you'll die painfully. This will feel like a mosquito bite, and then you'll fall asleep." Franklin had no chance to fight back. In the final second before death, Gustavo suddenly appeared, and behind him was Ruben, an undercover KGB operative in Los Angeles. Franklin's mother had secretly ordered him to monitor everything. Earlier, when the police were taking Gustavo away, Ruben intercepted and rescued him. A few LAPD officers were no match for a KGB agent. That's why the situation flipped instantly. Teddy recognized Ruben as KGB and knew resistance was pointless, so he threw down his weapon. Ruben ordered Gustavo to cuff Teddy to a forklift. "There's another gun by my foot." Of course, neither of them fooled Ruben. He asked Gustavo to pick up the gun, but as he leaned forward, Gustavo suddenly tackled him. He still didn't know whether Ruben was an ally or another threat. To protect his own escape plan, Gustavo, once a professional boxer, knocked Ruben out in a few blows and took control. Seeing the tables turn, Teddy begged Gustavo to uncuff him. Gustavo hesitated, then chose to save Franklin. Only then did Teddy realize Gustavo had betrayed him, but it was far too late. Naturally, Franklin wasn't going to spare Teddy, but before killing him, he needed to extract the location of his missing $70 million. To get his money back, Franklin played mind games with the CIA agent. He emptied the gun, leaving only one bullet. Against a man trained like Teddy, normal interrogation was useless. Today, Franklin planned something far more brutal. "You're not gonna pull that trigger. Damn it, if you kill me, you get nothing. I know, but if you die, everyone will know I did it. You believe that? Stop it now." Teddy suddenly realized something. Franklin cared far too much about the money to risk killing him. He suspected the gun was loaded with blanks. "You're insane." Teddy loaded the gun again for the next round. At that moment, Franklin's mother arrived and stopped him. She had something she needed to ask Teddy herself. Once Franklin stepped out, his mother confronted Teddy. Why did he kill her husband? She sent him to Cuba to retire peacefully, but her investigation showed Teddy visited Cuba the exact day he disappeared. Teddy claimed her husband was still alive, that he had kept him imprisoned somewhere. If she freed Teddy, he'd reveal the location. She didn't believe him, but a tiny ember of hope flickered inside. Meanwhile, Franklin still got nothing out of Teddy. His girlfriend suggested there was no pain worse than burning flesh. Franklin heated a pot of oil for half a day. Teddy refused to break. With no other option, Franklin slowly poured the boiling oil over his chest. Teddy's screams echoed through the warehouse. Unable to endure the agony, Teddy begged for mercy and offered to split the money. Seeing a chance to recover at least half, Franklin agreed. They arranged to meet in a crowded public place. Franklin then called Teddy's handler, saying he'd release Teddy and hand over the captured KGB agent. They agreed immediately. Franklin's mother insisted on going with him. Soon, they met at a public park. Teddy's handler wanted the KGB agent badly, so he demanded Teddy transfer Franklin's money first. As soon as Teddy made the call, Franklin's mother asked him, "Where is my husband?" Teddy laughed. "You serious? I lied. I shot him twice. He died. I dumped the body." Teddy had no idea that lie was the last mistake he'd ever make. "Right, I'm about to transfer it. The password is." Franklin was stunned. He was just one step away from becoming rich again. He rushed to check Teddy's body, begging him to finish the password before dying, but it was too late. His mother fell to her knees as police sirens drew closer. Mom, we have to go. Goodbye, my son." His mother refused to run. Franklin had no choice but to flee. Once she was arrested, Franklin entered the darkest chapter of his life. In court, Franklin's mother confessed to murder. She exposed the CIA's entire operation of creating puppets to profit from illegal trafficking. The judge immediately silenced her and sentenced her to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Meanwhile, the real estate business managed by Franklin's girlfriend was collapsing due to financial strain. Even after selling everything, the company was still deep in debt. 3 days later, she disappeared, taking the last of Franklin's money. She didn't even leave him his dignity. Banks that once welcomed him were now hunting him down for debt. Only those who have lost everything can understand the level of despair Franklin sank into. One day, Franklin finally got good news. The bounty hunter he hired had found Peaches, the man who stole his $5 million. It wasn't much compared to what he lost, but it was enough to keep him alive. Franklin rushed to the abandoned mansion where Peaches was hiding. Inside, he found him high on the sofa. Peaches sobered up instantly when he saw Franklin. When asked about the money, he said it was inside a safe behind him, but as soon as he sat up, Franklin tried every code he could think of, but the safe wouldn't open. Desperate, he called a locksmith. A locksmith arrived quickly, but midway, a thug walked in, saw the situation, and bolted. Franklin chased after him. The locksmith panicked and tried to flee, but Franklin blocked the doorway like death itself. "Open the safe, and you walk out alive," he said. The safe finally opened. Franklin eagerly swung the door open, only to find $12,000. His last spark of hope died instantly. 3 years later, Leon had become the most successful of them all. Meanwhile, Franklin hid in his mother's old house, drowning himself in alcohol. Leon couldn't stand seeing his brother fall apart, so he offered Franklin a job, a chance to rebuild his life. As always, Franklin refused, but this time, he whispered to Leon, the time wasn't right. The police, the CIA, and the KGB were all watching him. Only by acting crazy could he survive. Now he finally understood why his mother killed Teddy. It was the only way to protect their family. Franklin vowed not to let her sacrifice go to waste. Before walking away, Franklin promised Leon that he wouldn't stay broken forever. One day, they would stand side by side again and rebuild their empire. And that concludes all 6 seasons of Snowfall. What do you think of the series? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate it? Leave your answer in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next recap.